never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. We are here bright and early on a Monday morning. Appreciate everybody who tunes in live or tunes in later. We appreciate all of you. But we're live here on YouTube. We're going through all of the Week 7 NFL action. And not going to lie, Sam, it wasn't great.
Way to sell it, Steve.
Okay, so stick around. We're going to talk about all of it for at least 2 hours. Maybe we'll get out of here a little bit earlier because the action wasn't as good.
Okay.
But we learned some things. There are some big stories come out of Week 7, but the actual competitive football was a little lacking here in Week 7 so far.
Week 7 review, bad football was played. See ya.
Yeah.
Talk Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it might be an easier day for us.
Okay.
Get in, get out.
You know what the greatest thing we ever did?
What's that?
We got this table, which means I can wear sweatpants and nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows.
It's good,
Nobody has any idea.
I know.
What you're wearing for pants now, which is great. Yeah, you can just
hide the legs.
Keep it between us.
Could be in jeans like normal.
Yeah, this is the best thing we've done. Not gonna lie. Team sweats over here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we just roll right into the Monday after the show.
It's just beautiful. Yeah, like just roll right out of bed. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you might be wearing sweatpants too at home, just relaxing, watching us. And we do have.
I'm not sure that's a thread you want to pick at. What people are wearing at home whilst.
Yeah, let's cut that. Let's cut that too, because we're live. We could do that type of thing. We do need to go through we'll go through all of the games, but I feel like it's more of a higher level. Where are teams going? Let's look at
You want to break down the 54-13 Patriots win over the Jets in detail?
We'll touch on each game, but it's all the takeaways, man. It's all the takeaways that come out of that. The Panthers stink. The chat's already.
The Panthers stink.
The chat's already bumping right now.
Okay.
David Thorner 5 says the Panthers stink. Just to start with this, so the Panthers, they lose obviously. They bench Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
PJ Walker comes in.
Uh-huh.
Again, XFL or AAF star? XFL, right?
XFL, yeah.
And not a star at Temple, star in the XFL. He comes in. He's worse than Darnold.
Yeah, it didn't fix it, no?
There's these the rumors about Deshaun Watson are stronger and stronger. And I have a feeling the Panthers are just going to be like, take my first rounders. Just do it. Just take all of them this morning. I mean, we're sick of it.
We're not getting into the Deshaun Watson thing, but for the millionth time, I just do not understand how a deal that makes sense can get done for Deshaun Watson, given 20-odd lawsuits plus however many criminal. I need to find out the number of criminal things.
Unless there's inside info as to where the
I just don't see how that can be done whilst all that's hanging over him. The Texans have not traded him because they want full market value for Deshaun Watson, as if none of this existed, right? As if all of these legal cases against him were not there. That's the deal that they want, which is 3 first-round picks plus whatever else you want to throw into the deal. How can you make that move if you're the Panthers or the Dolphins or the Eagles or anybody else? How can you possibly send that amount of picks in their direction, having no idea if this is going to be resolved with a lot of money and payoffs for all these deals, or if he's going to jail?
It's very risky. Unless you know something. Unless you know something about where the investigation's going, which we don't know. It seems like the rumors were that people are trying to, figure it out, poke at the NFL, and hey, know anything? And people don't know yet, or at least it's not coming out publicly. So Anyway, we'll get into all of it. We're going to get into all the action. Where do you want to start here? By the way, the PFF NFL Daily came out late last night. Sometimes we do that. Early morning, late last night. We already posed the question, how much trouble are the Chiefs actually in?
Yeah.
But let's start with that game. And because we also have to praise the Titans, right? I mean, the Tennessee Titans, 27-3 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Say what you want about the Chiefs, and we did for at least 10 minutes on the Daily. We'll talk more here as well. The Titans coming off of an emotional Monday night win against the Buffalo Bills. Now, in the matter of 6 days, they have knocked off what many believe to be the two top teams in the AFC coming into the season.
Yeah.
Now we know better. The top teams in the AFC are the Bengals, the Raiders, and the Titans, and the Ravens. But
Everybody. Yeah.
yeah, everybody's the top team. But let's just get it out of the way. If the playoffs started today, our hometown Cincinnati Bengals getting the bye. They're getting the bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, well earned.
Uh-huh. I mean, they don't, so.
But I'm just saying, if the playoffs started today, and we had a November playoff coming up,
Yeah.
October, November. All right, so 27-3 Titans. What did you make of this one?
Well, this was a classic letdown spot, right? The Titans come off that emotional win, Monday night, short week, Kansas City. Classic, like, you lay an egg and stink the week later. And there is something to those, by the way. It isn't just like this thing that people talk about, it's a classic letdown spot. Those kinds of games you can actually kind of quantify with betting lines and all those kinds of things. There is something to the idea of a letdown game after that kind of big emotional win. On the other hand, the thing countering that is that the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, are still getting everybody's best punch. Like, they are still, even though they're now under 500 7 weeks into the season, they still carry the aura of being the Chiefs. And this is the team that everybody wants to show up against and make sure that Patrick Mahomes is not going to embarrass them. So I think obviously Tennessee showed that they are capable of knocking off 2 consecutive games like that and not having that kind of performance. But this was the first game of the year where the Chiefs offense didn't just turn the ball over, but look bad doing it. Like, all the way through the season so far, the first 6 weeks, they've turned the ball over more than any other offense in the NFL, but they have at least been easily moving the ball between doing that. Like, every drive is moving, like, they led the league in scoring, drive percentage, and touchdown drive percentage, and successful play rate heading into this game, despite turning the ball over more than anybody else in the NFL. And you're like, well, at some point, they're just going to stop these ridiculous turnovers. When they do that, they have the best offense in the league. This was the first game where, even independent of the turnovers, which showed up again, their offense didn't do that well. And then their defense is bad, really bad. So all of a sudden now, like, there was a point in this game where it was, 27-0 at the half? Largest deficit Patrick Mahomes has ever faced in the NFL. And you're like, well, okay, in the past we said, look, you put the Chiefs in a double-digit hole, that's where they love playing. And at some point they're going to come back. Even if you thought that the Chiefs' offense was capable of that kind of comeback in this game, you're like, they can't stop the Titans enough to have the time to do it. Like, the Titans are just going to chew the second half of the game on offense themselves, and the Chiefs are never going to have the ball for long enough to score.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that on the Daily today too. We've always talked about, the Chiefs are down, that's right where you want them, and you just didn't have that feeling. Now, the last time they were down by a ton, 24-0 against the Houston Texans, that AFC divisional game, and then they got down against the Titans in the AFC Championship, down 10 or whatever it was, but it was really early. It was in the second quarter. The game hadn't really started yet. The Texans game had a bunch of fluky, fake blocked punts and stuff like that. But those were the times the Chiefs were down by a lot, and you came back and you're like, all right, the offense hasn't gotten going yet. Now they're going to get rid of the run game and just put it in Mahomes' hands, and they're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the concerning numbers. So remember, for a while we were saying Mahomes never been blown out as a starting quarterback, right?
Yeah,
he went from late 2016 with Texas Tech, throw a few games in there. Every start as Chiefs quarterback, he had never lost by more than 8, or his team has never lost by more than 8 until last year's Super Bowl. So from 2016 until the last game of 2020, let's say all of 18, 19, and 20 in the NFL, never got blown out by more than 8. They lose to the Bucs. Now, 3 out of their last 8 games, they've lost by at least 18. To the Bucs in the Super Bowl, the Bills on Sunday Night Football, and then yesterday with the Titans. The other point I made on the daily is the Chiefs they beat the Browns in week 1. Maybe they got a little lucky there. Remember how the Browns dropped a punt?
Yeah. They lost.
And then fumbled in the second half.
That game was lost and the Browns threw it away.
Yes. And then if you push that aside just for a minute, the 2 Chiefs wins are against the Eagles and the Washington football team. Not very good teams right now. So that is the concerning part about the Chiefs. And I always try to say this, right? Like, we've seen Super Bowl teams be bad before in the whole deal. But it's really every week. They haven't played great football all season, the Chiefs.
Yeah, the problem is none of that, like, Super Bowl hangover stuff really makes sense when you're talking about, like, this is a team that has been to 3 consecutive AFC championship games, 2 consecutive Super Bowls. Like, you can't now decide that the Super Bowl hangover stuff works, right? Either it's a thing or it isn't. And if those things affect teams, it should have affected them already. Whatever is ailing the Chiefs right now is, I don't think, at all relevant to the Super Bowl. But the biggest problem they have is still the turnovers. Like, you know, you focus on what's wrong with this team, and there are a few things at this point. The defense is really, really bad, and it's closer to the 2018 version of the Chiefs, where it was one of the worst units in the NFL, than it is last year's, where they got viable. So that, I think, is a problem. I still think there's things that they can tweak on defense, and they've started to do them. You know, personnel moves like benching Daniel Sorensen, bringing in Juan Thornhill, like, those things are making a difference to the defense. It might not be enough, but it's at least taking baby steps in the right direction. But the biggest thing is, like, they are turning the ball over at an insane level. Like, they lead the league in turnovers by a reasonable distance. You just can't do that.
We're going to be saying this every week, right? The turnovers, it's going to stop, right? It's going to stop. And look, there's the actual act of turning it over, whether or not the other team gets the ball or not, has an element of luck in it. We had mentioned that Mahomes' turnover-worthy plays are down overall this year. I think how bad they are, though, is up.
Right.
I mean, last week he had 2-on-1 play. This week he had 2 fumbles as his 2 turnover-worthy plays. The interception was a little unlucky, but that's the other part too, right? Those are the things that are all. I mean,
it's pretty bad.
It was a bad decision, you know, outside the pocket. Those are the things that he had avoided for a few years, right? Is it Mahomes' playing style? I got some Mahomes stats where I want to.
The interception, though, is a classic example of how things are just going different for him this year. Like, Mahomes rolls out of the pocket to his left. He does that classic thing of, like, okay, everybody's covered, so I'm just going to, like, fling the ball in the general direction of one of my receivers because that's how we get out of this situation, right?
That's been a bunch of his picks this year.
Yeah. So, and normally when you do that, I mean, over the last couple of years when Mahomes has done that, things work out great. Suddenly, you know, Tyreek Hill manages to beat the guy at the catch point. It's a catch, and you're like, wow, how does Mahomes even see these plays? Now, what's happening, okay, it wasn't to Tyreek Hill this time, so maybe that's part of the issue. But now he picks a guy that's blanket covered, fires the ball in his general direction, and instead of just getting beaten at the catch point, the defender manages to get a hand on it, flicks the ball up, and it's picked, right? So these are just the things of, like, when you play like that, i.e. without a ton of control over how things are going to end, you know, if you just put the ball out there with the trust that your guy is going to make the play, it doesn't always go that way. And this is, look, I would like to state very clearly that I am not saying that Patrick Mahomes and Ryan Fitzpatrick are the same human being or play at the same level. But
is anyone recording this? Can we make sure we've got Sam is perfectly 100% equating Ryan Fitzpatrick and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, carry on with your point.
But that style of play of, when in doubt, give your guy a chance to make the play, is subject to wild variance. That with Fitzpatrick, we talk about, you know, that's why he's this roller coaster and it goes up and down. With Mahomes, it's always gone good up until now. Now, all of a sudden, it's going bad, and we're like, what's wrong with Mahomes? There isn't that much difference between what he's always done and what he's doing right now. The only difference is he's catching the crappy end of how it's working out.
So a couple things to get here. First off, breaking news. Here's the breaking news. Over at PFF.com, I believe it's 6 games are live, all a part of your premium stats package. That's all part of PFF Elite.
What if I don't want to pay full price for that? Is there a way that you can get me in for a discounted rate?
I actually have a discount that is personal just for you. Camera one, let's give me three. Give me three. Just for you.
You can't.
Just for you. Listen, I could direct the cameras.
The other studios with where you get to control. You can't control.
No, I talk to those guys and they put the camera on and I say just for you. This is how you do it.
What if people are just listening and they don't even have a camera on you?
Well, I'm talking to you too.
Okay.
NFL Pod. You get 25% off. Just use the promo code NFL Pod, and you can log in right now and get 25% off all of these stats and grades we're talking about because we've already graded and reviewed 5 or 6 games.
And that's the best way of supporting the PFF NFL podcast because when you do that, we get a little bit of credit, and the people that run this place see that we're not.
And we're all family here, so we're all sharing credit. So we're doing it for you. You guys are doing it for us. We're all working together.
Just trying to not look worthless on a Monday.
But the grades are in. The Chiefs Titans grades are in. If you look at the secondary for the Chiefs, L'Jarius Sneed had a rough game. No big surprise. The linebackers all had a rough game, especially in coverage. The only good grade there was Nicholas Bolton.
Yeah, what is with that?
87.3 against the run. That was very much his, I don't know. You said they were calling him Nicholas on the broadcast?
It was up on the, did he have a ton of tackles or something? He was on one of those, performers of the day
11
sidebars
by our
for the whole day.
Yeah, 11 tackles for us.
Right, and it was up there as Nicholas Bolton, which is the first time I've seen that, as opposed to Nick.
His rookie scouting report coming out of Missouri was very good run defender, not the best in coverage. And yesterday, 87 run defense grade, 32 in coverage, not great. Chris Jones, the highest graded defender. I mean, that pretty much sums it up, right? Even playing on the edge.
Well, so
and
now
he was the highest graded defender with just 2 pressures. 10 total pressures for Chiefs players yesterday.
They're taking baby steps towards the obvious fix to Chris Jones, i.e. moving him to hell back where he belongs in the first place. The first 6 weeks of the season, he's been basically a full-time edge rusher, almost never playing inside. Now, he's playing everywhere. So all over the defensive line. It's like, let's move him around. Let's put him wherever. You'll never know where Chris Jones is. It could be anywhere. Just move him inside. You move him inside. He's a wrecking ball. He is your best player. Just do that. Stop screwing around with him. It's not working. It's not benefiting you in any way, shape, or form. All the snaps do when you put him on the edge or put him anywhere other than inside is waste the impact that he can make. You put him inside, he wrecks a guard and causes problems on the play. Just do that. Stop moving. The edge rusher experiment, I get it. It was a nice idea. It didn't work, right? The move him everywhere strategy is unlikely to be as good as just leaving him inside.
Let's wrap. Let me give you a couple numbers on Mahomes. We have to give the Titans credit. We'll circle back to the few Titans fans that are watching here or listening. What?
Just throwing a little shade on the Tennessee.
Well, I know our numbers. I know the demographics.
Wow.
Titans are a little bit lower. Maybe they've come back. With how good the Titans have been the last couple of years. And I'll read some numbers to you.
Okay.
And you tell me if you're concerned or not concerned about Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Because here's what we do. We set hard cutoffs. Since his last elite game, when he had a 90 grade, that's the best time to do the cutoff if you're trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Which came in, I think it was week 13 last year. So I'll say since week 14 of last year, which is not a tiny sample. It's 13 games, Sam. Patrick Mahomes has
not a tiny sample. It is an arbitrary sample.
It's almost a full season. Almost a full season.
Sure.
In his last 13 games, including the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes has a PFF grade of 79.3. That ranks 16th. Passer rating, I'm throwing in there just because people understand that context, 93.8, that's 13th. Yards per attempt, 7.5, that's also 13th. And then EPA for the advanced folks, for the Chiefs, of course. The entire Chiefs offense is 10th in expected points added. The Chiefs passing offense is 8th in expected points added. So, is that a concern for Patrick Mahomes? We asked this last week, and we said, hey, the fact that he hasn't played well yet, we have a history of him playing well. He'll play better. That's better for the Chiefs. Now he's continuing to trend in the wrong direction. QB 16 since week 14 of last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not good.
Yeah.
My issue is I do wonder, how much does Mahomes end up playing significantly better if they just don't turn the ball over? Not because the turnovers are the thing that's dragging his grade down, though some of them are. but because, like, if you just don't turn the ball over, you stay on offense, you get a chance to do more good things.
Really quick, sorry to interrupt, but there was a point in the game where Tennessee had held the ball for 30 minutes compared to Kansas City holding it for 10.
Right.
That's like one of the few times time of possession tells the story. Kansas City could not sustain offense.
Exactly. And if you're going to go out there and then turn the ball over, like, you just don't have that much opportunity to actually make the good plays that are the thing that's missing from your game. But the freaky thing is, like, even after yesterday, Mahomes' turnover-worthy play rate this year is actually lower than it was last year. And yet he already has more interceptions than in either of the last 2 seasons. So this year's turnover-worthy play rate is lower than 2020 or 2019, and yet he has more interceptions than either season, either full season in total, including the playoffs. So there's a degree to which he is just catching the crappy end of variance. Like, this was, I tweeted yesterday that, like, his stats are going to get used as some kind of case study in how variance works, because the last 2 years he has gotten abnormally lucky when it comes to turnovers. So he had 20 turnover-worthy plays in 2019, 23 in 2020, and those resulted in 7 interceptions and 8 interceptions, which is and
this includes fumbles. It does include fumbles, and he lost a few of those too. But it's a great way to have perspective.
But he's been a very lucky, quote unquote, quarterback over the last couple of years in terms of the number of his turnover-worthy plays that have ended up turned over. This year, he's the other end of the scale. He's being ridiculously unlucky. He has 9 turnover-worthy plays and 9 interceptions alone. So obviously, some of those have been fumbles. Some of his interceptions have been these plays that have just bounced off receivers' hands and all those kinds of things. But, like, bottom line is he's getting unlucky this year versus lucky the last 2 years. And that's the only thing that sort of makes you go, I mean, this could go on a while, right? Because it's been 2 years of him getting, quote unquote, lucky with regards to these plays. Like,
get it all out of your system.
Well, these things can go on runs that are longer than you think they should be, right? Just because it's like, I didn't see, did the Bengals coin flipping streak continue yesterday? Because they were on like 11 in a row.
Didn't know that they had one.
They did. My point is, flipping a coin is a 50-50 proposition, right? On the other hand, the Bengals can still flip correctly for kickoff 11 straight times, maybe 12 straight times. I didn't check. It can go on longer than you think it should. So at some point, the Chiefs' turnover luck will go away and come back to normal. But that doesn't mean it will be this year.
You're making me check the game book here.
Like, the Chiefs could easily end up this unlucky and careless. Like, they are committing some bad turnovers themselves.
Not exactly breaking news, but news either way. BLT wins the toss.
See, the
and elects to defer.
Streak ends at 11 then.
BLT, of course, is Baltimore in the NFL database, even though it's BAL everywhere else.
Why is that, Steve?
Well, BAL in the database is the Baltimore Colts.
Can't believe
of course.
I asked
So you can't change that. So it's got to be BLT. And that's why you might see that. Is it still on our site as BLT?
It's
somewhere.
It's places.
Anyway. All right. So
it is, yeah.
Travis Kelce, 7 catches for 65 yards. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches for 49. They both averaged under 10 yards per reception. And here's where we start to give credit to the Tennessee defense. The Tennessee defense, they didn't just sit in this soft zone shell and keep everything underneath. They actually played a lot of cover 1, so they played a lot of man. They did sit in the too high shell as well, or keep things underneath. But their starting secondary, here's who graded well for the Tennessee Titans. Dane Cruikshank had a really nice game. He was manned up against Travis Kelce a bunch. Did a really nice job. Cruikshank has been in the league since 2018. This year, he has never played more than 50 snaps in a season until this year, 325 snaps. I mean, here's a guy that's just moved around, kind of slot corner, safety, special teamer, and he's out there as a big part of this game plan. Greg Mabin.
Yes. Who was on his 5th NFL team seeing snaps for. I haven't even checked if he's got more that he never played for.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at premium stats, he had never played more than 248 snaps. He had never graded above 48. I mean, since 2017.
Greg Mabin's career, if I have a moment to indulge.
Yes.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2017, Buffalo Bills 2017, San Francisco 49ers 2017 and 18, Cincinnati Bengals 2019, Tennessee Titans 2020, Jacksonville Jaguars 2020, Tennessee Titans again 2021, Arizona Cardinals 2021, and back with the Tennessee Titans 2021, started the game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, Greg Maben came in. I mean, this is the type of stuff after as depleted as Tennessee became on Monday night with all their guys going down, Chris Jackson, who was already the backup, getting hurt and all this stuff. And they roll out there with Greg Maben and Cruikshank and all these guys. Elijah Molden, the rookie, played a ton of snaps. You would think they'd get torched against the Chiefs. So credit to Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator, Mike Vrabel, everything that Tennessee did yesterday. Their secondary graded great.
Greg Maben gave up 1 catch for 6 yards.
Yeah, and Cruikshank, five catches for 35. And again, he was one-on-one with Kelsey a bunch. They just did an incredible job.
Yeah.
David Long played really well at linebacker. They got a couple. They got some pressure up front. A bunch of different. They had more. 5 different guys had 3+.
Bud Dupree showed up.
Even Bud got in there with a sack.
Why do you got to say even Bud? I was trying to give him credit, and you went.
True. You're right. Bud Dupree did some nice things. Denico Autry, he was the best pass rusher.
You literally can't say anything positive about Bud Dupree without it sounding sarcastic.
I could in 2019 when he was playing pretty well.
But now you physically can't do it.
No. I mean, the dude's got like 9 more pressures than I do this year.
Yeah?
Give or take.
Okay.
Right? Was he have 9 for the year? That's all right. Whatever. We're giving credit to the Titans all across the board.
Yeah, you're doing a really good job of that.
It's just really impressive what they did with all those guys. And then offensively, look, I know we were hyping up Derrick Henry and the whole thing. A game like this kind of hurts the MVP case for Derrick Henry.
No, it doesn't. Derrick Henry threw a touchdown pass.
True.
That's one more than Patrick Mahomes threw.
Good point. All right. I mean, they were making the point on the broadcast. Every time Tannehill fakes to Derrick Henry, it's like, everything's wide open and it runs through Henry.
If I will, Ryan Tannehill passer rating 105, Derrick Henry passer rating 127. Derrick Henry threw the same number of touchdown passes. He was the leading touchdown passer in this game, featuring Ryan Tannehill and Patrick Mahomes. And unlike the other two, he didn't throw an interception.
All right, so Henry for MVP is alive and well.
That's what I'm saying.
I just love, he throws the jump pass on the goal line. Tannehill kept moving the chains. A.J. Brown was unstoppable. It was. This is when we talk about the dudes. It's like in any given game, it could be Julio Jones. It could be Derrick Henry. Well, this was the A.J. Brown game where he breaks out for 8 catches and 133, 91 receiving grade. And just really impressive all around by the Titans.
And you could see, I don't know if this is a specific to the way the Chiefs are coached on defense, but like some teams linebackers you can see don't react to play action, or at least are coached they're not even reading play action, right? They're like coverage first. They're at the time the ball is being faked to the running back, they are dropping into zones to then come up and attack the run if it turns out it's a run. The Chiefs do the opposite of that. Like, they are attacking downhill at the line of scrimmage, regardless of whether it's a play fake or not. So there are plays where Derrick Henry is being faked the ball, and the guys in the box are all storming towards the line of scrimmage, and then it's a play fake. We are 8 yards out of position at this point. And you see, like, Nicholas Bolton, like, turning tail, just running backwards blindly into coverage, hoping that the ball ends up hitting his back or whatever. Derrick Henry is a part of that, right? I don't know if that's specific to the Chiefs' defense or if that's the added Derrick Henry factor, but whatever it is, when they faked the ball to him in this game, everybody in the box was nowhere near being in a suitable coverage spot.
Yeah, I do wonder how much that's Derrick Henry and how much it's just the Chiefs have, again, coming into the game, we were like, hey, they have the worst run defense. Great. Right. And they're going to have to stop the run, so they're just overcommitted. So that brings us to the AFC. We've talked a lot about the Titans and Chiefs. We do have to move on. The top of the AFC right now is Bengals, Raiders, Titans, and Ravens, all 5-2. What a fascinating group. I mean, we're talking about a Bengals team and a Raiders team both lost to the Bears, right? They both lost to the Bears. The Titans lost to the Jets. So as much as we're throwing some dirt on the Chiefs here,
they're not dead and buried yet.
They're not. Of course they're not. I mean, there's too much of a history.
But they're in a hole.
Of them being really good. The Chargers are 4-2. The Bills are 4-2. These teams have beat each other up. The AFC is wide open. There are 5 teams in the NFC with one or fewer losses. The Cardinals, the only undefeated team. There is 0 in the AFC. So it's just completely wide open here. So
let's go to the Bengals game.
Let's go to the Bengals game. A statement game.
Yeah.
For the hometown Bengals.
I like this game because it went exactly the way I said it was going to go, sort of. My point going into this game, or my big thing, was Joe Burrow was the number one graded quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. Baltimore blitzes as much as anybody in the NFL. That's how they love to play. They were like top 5 in blitz rate, despite the game against the Chiefs, right, where they didn't blitz at all.
They didn't blitz.
Which is skewing their numbers, obviously, in a 6-week sample size.
You stole my segue.
Oh, yeah?
You stole my ad time.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, deal with it.
Can I slide in a little discussion about DraftKings?
Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Take it away. What have you got?
This isn't smooth at all, but it's necessary because we're 30 minutes into it, and we got to talk about DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They got you covered this week because all new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, it's $200 in free bets. That's what you win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests, and DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. We've been giving away these incredible DraftKings deals all season. I don't know how long they're going to last, Sam, but this is a pretty easy one. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code PFF. All you have to do is bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and you win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. So I would find the biggest favorite. They all won yesterday. All they have to do is win. You bet 5. You come away with $200. Promo code's PFF over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. 1 per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Sorry, go on.
So,
Joe Burrow, the blitz.
Number one quarterback against the blitz. Ravens blitz as much as anybody. And the idea being they're not going to give Joe Burrow that respect just on spec, right? They're going to make him prove it. It took 3, is that right, games against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs of getting torched when they sent the blitz at him to be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this. It turns out Patrick Mahomes knows how to beat this blitz. So they were going to send the blitz against Joe Burrow, and that was going to expose them to getting beat by some big plays. It was going to put Jamar Chase one-on-one with their DBs throughout the game and see if Joe Burrow can connect with that. Now, out of, 39 dropbacks, they blitzed Joe Burrow 15 times. In those 15 attempts for Burrow, 10 completions, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16.3 yards per attempt, a PFF grade of 82.2. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase carved up the Baltimore Ravens blitz and consequently put up a ton of points that Baltimore were not able to match.
It's presumably the 82-yarder was in that mix. Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps to have the 82-yarder with Jamar Chase.
But that was the point, right? It's like you are
everybody. Right, you
are essentially daring them to do the thing they've done all season long, which is connect Burrow to Chase and make magic happen. And they did.
Jamar Chase is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
Just an absolute game changer. 8 catches, 201 yards. To your point.
A lot of which against Marlon Humphrey.
Yes.
Who is, like, there are people out there that are like, Humphrey's overrated. Humphrey's not very good. Humphrey is one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. If you can't see that, I can't help you. He just is, right? And yet Jamar Chase wrecked him multiple times yesterday.
Yeah, we were wondering, remember, the Ravens lost their entire backfield and then lost Marcus Peters for the season. One of the advantages of the Ravens in their system, or the strengths of their team, was having that depth in the secondary, whereas Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, and, oh, by the way, Tavon Young and Anthony Everett and all that stuff. But once you lost Marcus Peters, we were wondering, what's going to happen here? Can they still blitz the way they are? And, yeah, definitely just burned them yesterday. Humphreys gave up 227 yards. He did force that fumble, almost saved, not even the game, but it just, kind of kept the Ravens in it late with that forced fumble on Jamar Chase. But Humphreys gets torched for 227 yards, mostly on an island. And he had an interception in there, too, that kind of helped him. That was like the one bad decision Burrow made in this game. But Jamar Chase is an absolute game changer, man. It's unbelievable that he can make this many big plays week after week. And he did this 82-yarder was different, right? I mean, he wins down the field. He does all that stuff. Now he's juking 3 dudes. to go 82 yards on a slant, that is scary what Jamar Chase has brought to this offense.
Yeah, I mean, there was a play where Humphrey was up in his grill in press coverage. He released off the line. I'm not sure Humphrey even touched him. He was certainly grasping at air, trying to get to him. And then he just ran away from him across the field, like on a deep over route, and got significant yards after the catch. Like, these are all the things that people said he couldn't do, right? Oh, can't beat press coverage, can't separate, all those things. And not only is he doing them, but he's doing them effortlessly against some of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. I mean, Jamar Chase is absolutely for real. Like, somebody tweeted yesterday that the reaction to seeing Justin Jefferson last year be one of the best rookies in NFL history should have been like, oh, this dude at college that was objectively way better than Justin Jefferson in the same offense is going to be insane next year. And yet for some reason the reaction went in the other direction. It was like, oh, let's talk about all the things that are wrong with Jamar Chase's game. But the dude is insane. Like, he's now...
And now looking back, it's like, wait, these dudes played on the same team?
Right. The all-time leader in yardage through the first 7 weeks of their rookie seasons. Like, nobody has ever had more yards after 7 games than Jamar Chase has. Ever.
It's just absolutely incredible, man. It has completely changed the Bengals offense. Last year at this time, we said, look, Joe Burrow was playing well. Deep ball's got to get better. All of a sudden, that's better this year when you have a receiver that's getting open and making plays down the field. There wasn't much else. I mean, then you have CJ Uzoma. Just randomly decides he's going to become Gronk in a few games per year. He had the huge big gain. And that's what I liked about the Bengals too, right? They were 6.5-point underdogs in this game. And you watch enough NFL games, we'll talk about the Lions soon, right? Where the team that is the underdog, they're hanging tough, and just the more football you watch, at some point, the favorite runs away with it. And the Ravens took a lead, right? They got up to a point where it's like, okay, if you're a believer in the Ravens and that they're a much better team than the Bengals, they get up 70-13 early in the second half. Great throw. Lamar Jackson to Marquise Brown. Just beautiful back of the end zone. Mm-hmm. And then Joe Burrow and the Bengals come back with a 32-yarder to Uzoma. They take the lead. And then they get the 82-yarder to go up 10. And then it's just Bengals from here on out. Joe Mixon scores on a 21-yarder on the ground. And the Bengals offense just takes over. I think that, I mean, I predicted this win, right? I predicted the signature win for Joe Burrow and the Bengals and the new era and all this stuff. This is one of those, right? In a game where it was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and the Bengals were the team that pulled away in the second half.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Uzama has 13 catches over the last 5 or 6 games.
For like 900 yards.
Sure. But 5 of them are touchdowns.
Yeah, there you go.
And he's got like almost 9 yards after the catch on average per reception. I'm so bummed. I only just looked at my notes that I take during the course of Sunday, so I have any vague idea what the hell happened once the games all blend into one. Completely missed the fact that the Chiefs ran a rugby play in the game. They ran a drag route to Travis Kelce, who then pitched it to the dude outside of him. They created the overlap. I've been saying for years now that there's like a whole world of these plays open to gain extra yardage, and the NFL just doesn't tap into it.
You know what
the
would
Chiefs
help?
Just do it casually and chill.
You know what, though?
Now, it didn't help. They lost, so.
Yeah. The Chiefs should practice more football plays instead of rugby plays, perhaps.
This is Travis Kelce. The man doesn't practice this kind of stuff. It's just instinct.
There was twice he was looking to – he pitched it once, and he was looking to do it again.
Uh-huh. You should. NFL should be creating these plays because you can create overlaps like that rugby can barely dream of because of the rules.
I would think about it when you get the we always look for ways to get the mid-tier quarterback to elevate him, perhaps some rugby plays, which by the way didn't work at all.
What do you mean it worked?
Didn't work?
It got them a first down that wasn't there. It worked.
It's called a hook and ladder, by the way, but
it's not.
Don't take away from the hometown Bengals.
I'm not.
I'm just impressed. They were down 17-13 in the second half and won 41-17.
Yeah. Biggest ever Bengals win over Baltimore. First time Lamar Jackson has lost in October.
There's a stat.
He was 9-0 in October before that game.
There's a stat.
Yeah. I mean, it's not mine. I've stolen it from whatever broadcast I was watching at the time, but
I mean, the Ravens have won about 75% of Lamar's starts, including the playoffs. I mean, him and Mahomes just haven't lost a ton of games. There's probably not a lot of weeks in history where they've both lost in the same week. And it shows, I think, just how wide open this AFC is. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I think they're still kicking themselves about that Packers overtime loss because they'd be sitting there at 6-1. But it is fascinating. Their 2 losses to the NFC, the Packers and the Bears. But look, Jamar Chase, absolute game changer. Got to credit the Bengals defense. Lamar didn't have the best. Outside of that great throw to Marquise Brown, Lamar's accuracy was off, but the Bengals made it difficult on them. A bunch of their free agents in the back end played a really good game. I mean, it was an impressive all-around team effort. Chidobe Awuzie, the highest graded defender from a coverage standpoint, and was he overall? Yeah, overall. Impressive by the Bengals, man.
I don't want to break it to you, but the great Alejandro Villanueva gave up 8 pressures and was the only guy on the team to have a pass blocking grade under 50.
Yeah, it's still early.
Oh,
that was the other thing I did want to mention. Bengals defensive front got after it. Just really impressive with Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. 7-8 pressures between them. 32 total pressures. Just, added, not snaps, but total pressures. That includes multiple per play. Larry Ogunjobi got in the mix. Bengals, the overhauled defensive line for the Bengals played great.
It did.
Yeah, Villanueva could do a better job.
Yeah, it was definitely helped by Baltimore's offensive line. So Villanueva playing badly, and then they lost Patrick McCarry, who's been a solid right tackle once they reshuffled. They lost him after 20 snaps. Tyre Phillips comes in and was a problem on some snaps. Now, his grade is actually okay. He only gave up 3 total pressures. His pass blocking grade is 71.6. They helped him out a reasonable amount, which, you kind of needed to, given you're basically down to 3rd string at right tackle at this point. But that is a potential problem for this team going forward. It was causing issues for Lamar Jackson in the pocket. And that's like, you look at Baltimore and you're like, okay, how far can they go this season? The fact that you don't trust that offensive line, particularly the tackles, is a concern.
We were hyping up Lamar for MVP, in part because he had that incredible game against the Colts where a lot of it was on him. Then you see a game like this where the running backs only had 11 carries. They didn't go anywhere. This is un-Ravens-like, right? There have been games where they've put up a lot of rushing yards. Their EPA per rush, though, it was middle of the pack coming into this week. So they are less effective as far as efficiency goes in the run game this year. Lamar had 3 times as many carries as pretty much anybody on the team here, except Le'Veon Bell. Is there just too much on his plate, right? Didn't it just feel too much like, he spent the average time to throw in the pocket was 3.5 seconds too with Lamar. As much as I always defend him and say he's not just trying to dance around, he's not just looking to run and all this stuff. There are games where it does feel like he just takes the weight of the world on his shoulders and tries to do too much in the passing game. And running and the whole thing, maybe just too much on Lamar here.
Yeah, I think there's a degree of, it's always going to seem that way when they lose and when it doesn't go well.
Yeah,
on the other hand, it's the same thing as they've been doing the last few weeks when it's been going well and they've been winning and nobody's mentioned it then. So
No. I am completely reacting to yesterday's loss.
I'm just saying it's probably not an issue if you don't think it's an issue while they're winning games. I think this is just the nature of that, right? Like if Lamar Jackson is going to be the offense, if you find a way of causing Lamar Jackson some problems and he isn't amazing on the day, you're going to have a lackluster offense yourself.
So Cincinnati Bengals, number 1 seed in the AFC. We'll get into some non-AFC talk at some point, but that was those are the big stories, man. The games weren't close ultimately, but those are the big stories. The shakeup in the AFC.
Those are your big stories.
They're not the biggest stories?
No.
What's the biggest story?
The Jared Goff revenge game.
We'll get to that right after we blitz through the hairs with Manscaped, right? That's what we're going to do first.
I'm not doing that with you here on the podcast.
No, we're not going to, but our listeners are going to because it's football season, and that's what we do during football season. It's never been easier, and it's time for you to join the 2 million men worldwide, not just us, but 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the promo code PFF over at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. That sounds like a good deal. It's throwing it out the window with all other trimmers. Now go tame that Wildcat offense, Sam. Do not read if you have. Oh, no. Sorry. It says don't read it. Just joking.
If you have what now?
No, it says talk about a great story. Talk about your grooming stories. This is where you come in.
Have you got one?
Go.
You don't have a good grooming story.
No, this is where I throw it to you for the great story about the lawnmower 4.0.
We're mere days away from Halloween at this point. I'm waiting for the awesome pun that involves somehow pumpkins and nut shaving.
Should I just...
You got nothing?
Shave your pumpkins this year with the lawnmower 4.0. We've been here since the 1.0, but the 4.0, it's incredible. It's here to take your defense to the next level. Yeah, I had to ad-lib a little bit with no Halloween theme here.
I don't think you have a future in Manscaped ad writing.
Jingle balls to the wall. I can't wait for that one.
Right?
We'll bring that back.
Where are they?
This 4th-generation trimmer, either way, features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. I could talk. Thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on-off switch that can engage a travel lock, and it gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. You don't need the trendy Halloween stuff because... Did we mention it's waterproof, Sam? We have mentioned this before. Rain, snow, or sleet, which is coming soon, especially on the East Coast or North.
Right. Well, what is it?
They're no match for the waterproof power of the 4.0.
The atmospheric river? That's not going to stop you shaving your nuts.
Yes. So if you were sitting there in the atmospheric river in San Francisco last night, you got the Lawnmower 4.0.
Could have kept blitzing.
It is waterproof. Blitz through the hairs. Even live during the San Francisco 49ers game, there's no 15-yard penalty for this clipping.
No.
Even in the river storm.
There might be an arrest coming your way for indecent exposure, but I mean, look.
Yeah, Manscaped is not responsible for any arrests. They didn't add that, but I did for them.
Well done, yeah.
Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code PFF over at Manscaped.
Please buy these things, by the way, because then we get to keep doing this. And frankly, the Manscaped reads are the best part of the show.
We're doing all of this for you, right? We do Manscaped. We do the NFL Pod promo, which is 25% off. We do that all for you.
I mean, look, Christmas is coming up.
Together.
Who wouldn't want to receive a nut shaving device for Christmas?
Jingle balls to the wall. It's the best. You're going to jump right to the Goff revenge game?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was great.
Go. It was a really good game.
It didn't go the way I thought it was going to go at all. As much as I was smug about the Bengals taking it to Cincinnati, I thought the Rams would absolutely stomp Detroit. Poor Jared Goff, hapless Jared Goff, into the dirt and just walk off in, smug victory. But this was like... Bill Barnwell tweeted this was the Lions Super Bowl. They came out and they're going for a 4th down, fake punts, fake kicks. They're doing everything.
They converted 2 fake punts.
Yeah.
They recovered an onside kick.
Yeah, surprise onside kick after the first touchdown.
Yes. But this is how you play when you are 17-point underdogs or whatever they were, 15.5, whatever it was. When you're a massive underdogs, that is how you're supposed to play.
Yes. But the problem is they then got gutless. So they'd done all this to get up to, a 10-0 lead to start. And then they have 4th and 3, and they do that ridiculous thing where you go up and you pretend you're going to snap the ball and you end up calling a timeout and you just go for a field goal. You've already set your stall out, right? You have to be insanely aggressive to convert these plays so you can stay ahead of the Rams, who are clearly a much better team than you are. Don't chicken out once it's working. This is when you double down. 4th and 3, pick it up. Fake it or run the play or get that score. Then you can go up 14-0, and now you're really putting the boot to them. Instead, you kick the field goal. You take the soft thing. And then, that's the problem is they then end up getting punished for that. The Rams are better than the Lions. They're eventually going to come back. They're going to peg it back. And it kind of tragically ended up, Jared Goff played pretty well. It was making the point, hey, I can do this. Okay, helped by dumping it off to running backs who take it 70 yards for a touchdown. But then ultimately, Jared Goff.
That was a good way to kick it off. 63-yard screen pass to DeAndre Swift for a touchdown.
Goff and his receivers, hideous, miscommunication on 3rd and 7 in Rams territory. Tragic turnover, and it's that was you ran it close, but ultimately this kind of went out. It was the perfect way of ending where Goff could go head held high to the post-game handshake, and be whilst equally Sean McVay could kind of look him in the eye and be yeah, well done, Jared. That was pat on the head, good effort. You did better than I thought you were capable of, but ultimately you're still a loser. That was basically the end result of this. But it could have been so much more for the Lions.
they did a lot of the right things, like you said. They did punt. I mean, they did kick the field goal on 4th and 3. Yeah, not great.
It's just if you're going to go out there and be like, look, this is our Super Bowl. We're going to go for the 4th downs. We're going to do the surprise onside kick. We're going to do everything humanly possible to steal extra possessions and stop the Rams scoring. You can't then like turtle up when it gets to 4th and 3 and take a field goal.
They also got that's the other thing too. I believe they stopped. They got stuffed on 4th and 1 at the Rams 18. They went for it properly there. It's one of those games where they needed all of those. So if they had gotten that 4th and 1 and somehow pulled this off, we would have gone through this laundry list of 2 fake punts and the surprise onside, and they converted the 4th down. And then the Rams go for it on 4th and like inches, pass the ball. Stafford misses the throw or hits the defender. And that was not that. It was like just into Lions territory.
You're such a huge underdog. You need all of those plays.
You need all of them,
and you can't therefore not go for some of them. Like you have to go for all of those plays. You're such a big underdog. You probably, the idea of the analytics always says go for it. Well, it doesn't, right? But it says go for it a lot more than most teams do.
Yeah.
But you probably have to err on the side of going for it, even when the analytics says maybe not. Like just go, because what have you got to lose here?
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where the analytics also know if you are Jared Goff and the Lions going for it with a lesser roster, or if you're Matthew Stafford and the Rams going for it, and if you don't get it. So again, we always talk about this. The longer the game goes, unlike the Ravens game, the favorite generally pulls away, right? The more real football that is played, the more it's to the favor of the favorite, the better football team. So the more you can shorten that and steal possessions and just whatever it might be. I thought they had a fumble Ruski in them. I thought they had a Statue of Liberty. I thought they had more in them. I think that was the problem with the Lions. They didn't have more. No fumble Ruski.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they needed the fumble Ruski, but I do think that you can't. You set the stall out. You got the shock early lead. You did kind of rock the Rams back in their heels. But you can't then stop swinging. Like you have to. The only way to win that is to keep going. Like load up haymaker after haymaker, and try and put them out. You can't go, well, we got one lucky shot in. They're reeling, so now let's back up and let them regroup and recover. I mean, you're such a huge underdog. You needed to keep swinging and hit them with everything you have, and you didn't. You backed off, and that kind of set yourself up for the ultimate, like, eventually Goff was going to make a mistake, or the offense generally, because that seemed to be a kind of general miscommunication.
On the other side, the Rams, I thought they stepped up and handled all of that. I mean, it's certainly not a flashy win, 28-19. You're not going back, and we're not doing a whole podcast on are the Rams the best team in the NFC after what we just saw. It's like, hey, they handled the underdog's punches and came back. I thought Matthew Stafford played one of his cleanest games in his not a revenge game, but against his former team with the Lions. The pass game was incredible again. Cooper Kupp was unstoppable, 10 catches for 156 and a couple scores. So the Rams just, continue to be able to move the ball and create big plays. And again, it was with all the stuff that was going against the Rams offense, puts a little pressure on them. You gotta keep up. You gotta keep up when you get fewer possessions as they did, or just less timely possessions. And I thought Stafford played one of his cleanest games, did a really nice job. Lions defense and the whole thing, but you got to give him credit. He finishes 28-41, throws for over 300, 3 touchdowns, graded well, didn't miss a ton of throws, and kept the ball safe for the most part.
Yeah.
So, good job by the Rams. And it was one of those things, the longer it goes, it's like, oh, Goff, red zone interception. Incredible play by Ramsey.
Yeah. Somebody was making the point, and it's a reasonable one, that this was like the perfect game for Dan Campbell and the Lions. It's like you lose, which for you is a good thing because, rebuild, year one, you want the high draft pick.
Yeah.
But you go down swinging, everybody thinks that you're doing everything you can to win. You're the guy that everyone wants to fight for and to play for. And, perfect end result. You run the Rams close. You were never supposed to be in the game, but you get the result that everybody thought was going to happen, which is a loss and another step on the way to the first overall pick.
So that's a perfect win-win?
Yeah. Like your point is you don't want to just mail it in because you you breed this losing culture, and it's hard to shake that off once you're good. So the best result is to lose anyway, but go down swinging. Like, so everybody's trying to win, but
swinging or biting kneecaps, whatever it takes.
Right. Everybody's trying to win, you just don't, and therefore end up with the better draft pick.
What are your thoughts on Dan Campbell so far, overall, in Detroit?
I think he seems to be doing a good job. He's doing a lot of smart things. I would like to have seen him follow through with the promise of early in the game, right? You started off doing the right things and then kind of went into your shell a little bit. I mean, that's not a Dan Campbell specific thing. I think NFL coaches are always just one move away from getting conservative and not staying as aggressive as they need to in situations like this. But I mean, very few coaches are capable of sort of understanding the situation and keeping their foot down on the gas. Everybody sort of, you start off, you do the aggressive thing, and it's like, oh, sweet, it worked. We got the extra possession. Now let's go and play the game normally. Like, no, the whole point about this is you need to do that the whole way through. Otherwise, it doesn't really do the job.
I hope that this wasn't really their Super Bowl, though.
Oh, it definitely was.
Because they're going to have other games where they're massive underdogs, right? And I just love the way they played it. I love overall the aggressiveness that they had and realizing that. And, they're just limited as a team, man. Sorry about the table. They're just limited as a team. So you have to pull out all the stops. From a Rams perspective, they moved to 6-1, and they had to take care of business. A win's a win, and I thought they responded well offensively when they needed to. So nice job by the Rams. Moving on. Nice job by the Lions. Win-win for everybody. Moral victories
for everybody. Not really a win for the Lions. I mean, they lost.
Were there any close games?
No.
Let's go through the rest of the slate. Patriots 54, New York Jets 13.
Not a hugely close game.
Statement game for the New England Patriots. This is like one of those old school, just everything was good. Pass game, run defense, pass defense. Everything was good for New England. Oh, man. Zach Wilson gets hurt. Mike White comes in as the backup. Mike White did put the Jets on the board at least. But, man, this was a thrashing from start to finish from the Patriots.
The good news for Zach Wilson is that Mike White did at least look worse. So
after he threw the touchdown, things got a little bit worse.
Yeah, like you can. The worst thing for the Jets would be if like Zach Wilson went down, Mike White comes in, looks better, and you're like, oh, like, this is really bad. I knew it wasn't going well for Zach Wilson beforehand, but only once you see his backup like outperform him and sort of show just how bad it is, are we really concerned. So Mike White did at least have the decency to come in and play worse overall, and now you're like, okay, it's fine. At least Zach Wilson is the best option we have here, in addition to, the obvious future being the second overall pick. But yeah, like the Jets are bad right now, and Zach Wilson obviously can't raise the level of the whole thing by himself. This is a team with a pretty long way to go to be even, competitive.
I thought they'd be a little better this year, the Jets. I thought Robert Saleh would bring a little bit of stability to the defense. Now, to be fair, we did look at that defense coming into the season and we said, good defensive line, especially when Carl Lawson was out there. We looked at the defensive line and said, okay, they can do some things there. They got wrecked yesterday. Linebackers had a rough game too. But we definitely went into the season saying, other than Marcus May, this poor secondary. It was a whole bunch of first and second year fifth rounders. It really was. I mean, literally fifth round or later, whole bunch of first or second year players, young players. And honestly, they should probably have been torched even more than they have this year. So the roster still has work to do. The other part was we thought all the investment in the offense and the offensive line, I know they've had some injuries in the whole thing. You're just not seeing enough other than, the Tennessee game where Zach Wilson made some of those big-time throws. You're just not seeing enough from this offense or the defense. There's just not enough encouraging signs. As we're talking about the Lions were overmatched in their game against the Rams, but they're feisty, right? They're battling and they're onside kicking. They're doing all this stuff and keeping it competitive. The Jets just, man, this was rough for them.
Yeah, they got pretty well stomped.
From a New England standpoint, they're now 3-4. 2 wins against the Jets and 1 against the Texans. Now, I do think beating the Jets handily, especially like in this one, might bode well for the future in the whole thing. And it shows what their potential is. Just absolutely dominant. Like their offensive line, they only gave up, as a group, only gave up 6 pressures, including everybody, offensive line and other blockers. Dominant in from a pass blocking standpoint, dominant from a run blocking standpoint. They did it all. Does this bode well for the Patriots, or is it just they beat up on a bad team and, hey, they got the Chargers next week? Well, the wins and losses, the wins are still going to be tough to come by for this Patriots team, because this was really impressive. Old school, throwback, all-around win for the Patriots and Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't bode badly for them, but it does feel like this is still a team that's only really capable of beating up on bad teams and not necessarily good themselves. Like, they are still running this training wheels offense for Mac Jones. You put up 50 against the Jets, and it's the Jets. If ever you're going to, open it up.
Why are you calling it training wheels, though? It's the Patriots. It's the regular Patriots offense.
Because in a game where you're going to hang 50 on the New York Jets, you are running trick plays with Kendrick Bourne throwing the ball rather than just saying, Mac Jones, drop back and hit the guy in the end zone, please. Let Mac Jones be your quarterback. Stop trying to act like you would rather anything else than Mac Jones just be a drop back passing quarterback.
That in, though. They've always mixed that stuff in.
Mac Jones had an average depth of target in this game of 7.6.
Yeah.
He's just not being asked to be a quarterback at this point. They are running an offense as if Mac Jones is a hindrance, not a beneficial part of the passing game. And at some point, that doesn't work.
He did hit a nice deep ball in there.
Yeah.
They did open it up.
But this is not a system that can beat the best teams in the NFL. It just you've shown so far this year. It would be one thing if the Patriots, we said heading into this season, the 2 tight end offense, the offensive line that they'd assembled, the running backs all built with power. This is a team that could potentially sort of shock the league in terms of just bulldozing everybody, right? And kind of running in here with this 1994 offense that nobody is prepared for because everybody has pivoted towards coverage and linebackers weighing 215 pounds and defensive linemen being 280 instead of 330. There was a chance that this offense has just swung all the way to a different style of power that the league wasn't prepared for anymore. But that isn't the case. We've seen so far this year that they're not that good relative to everybody else, that they can just run that. And if they had, you could make a case that, all right, you don't need Mac Jones to be anything more than an Alex Smith who just goes out there, takes what's there, doesn't turn the ball over, and steers this giant oil tanker in the direction of the end zone. But that isn't what's happening. So you have an offense that isn't really capable of bulldozing everybody and a quarterback that's trying to steer it slowly towards the end zone. Just let him go out there and play quarterback. That's why you drafted him in the first round.
And he's played well, man. He continues to just not make a lot of mistakes. When he does make mistakes, they're ugly looking. He didn't have any in this game as far as turnover-worthy plays go. Mac Jones playing really well. He's very clearly been the best rookie quarterback with a very low standard, but he's been the best. He's grading really well here through 7 weeks. So I think I'd be encouraged, but this also feels a little bit like last season with the Patriots. Last year was a lot of win one, lose one, and they won the games that they mostly won the games they should have and lost the games that they should have. If they're going to make a playoff run, which by the way they're 3-4 as well, much like the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. If the Patriots are going to make a playoff run in this wide open AFC, they got to win next week against the Chargers and win those types of games against playoff caliber teams. To this point, we've only seen them beat up on 2 teams probably picking in the top 10, maybe in the top 5 when it comes to the Jets and the Texans.
Yeah, it does feel like they have a level right now, and I don't see an obvious way of overcoming that. In order to jump ahead of another level, you would need to do things like, let Mac Jones run the offense.
I don't know if you're classifying that properly, but
how would you classify it?
You just want them to chuck it 10+ yards down the field a little bit more.
Well, significantly more, and not. I mean, everything they do.
They call those concepts. They don't have the best receivers at getting open there, and Mac Jones is one of those, just take what's there type of guy. Quick decision, and if it's open underneath it, he's more likely to do that. I think he's less aggressive by nature.
Everything they do screams we don't trust our quarterback.
There are definitely elements where it's like third and long screens, and there's a lot of times where they do take the ball out of his hands on critical downs and just rely on the play action game and everything. But that's also, I don't know, isn't that a good way to get your rookie integrated? Because we're going to talk about Fields in a minute, getting crushed and,
It's a good way of protecting your rookie quarterback. But the point is, at some stage, you have to determine whether he needs the protection or not. Like, Justin Fields right now needs the protection. Mac Jones hasn't really done much this season to suggest that he needs the protection. And by the way, you need more from the quarterback. So if those two things are both true, you need to start putting more on his plate and saying, what can you do here? Because right now what you're doing is great, but it's not actually good enough for us to be good.
Well, let's see next week against the Chargers. They just put 54 on the Jets. I think it's the week to say good all-around win by the Patriots. Still continue to be excited about what you have in Mac Jones. And, yeah, at some point, he's going to have to go win games for you. So let's move on.
Only 38% of Mac Jones' pass attempts this season have been beyond the first down marker.
Is that on him or is that the offense? It's probably a combination.
But when it gets to third down, it shoots up to like 60%, which suggests that like Mac Jones would like to pass beyond the sticks. Like if you say to Mac Jones, hey, we need to actually pick up a first down here, he seems to be perfectly happy to do that. But most of the time you're not actually targeting those places. So
put more on Mac Jones' plate.
Yes. Mac Jones right now has surpassed almost all reasonable expectations. So let's start upping his workload and seeing what he can do. Because if this is the offense you run all the way through the season, you will not win enough games to make the playoffs. You will not be a contending team this year. You have a level. You will beat the Jets. You'll beat the bad teams. You're not going to beat the good teams. So if you have aspirations beyond that, the only way of changing that is to start asking more of Mac Jones and seeing if he can do it.
Particularly in the big games. They got to play Buffalo twice, Chargers next week. In these big games, you got to do it. So we'll see. I mean, you're right. We are a week removed from them. He had 10 attempts against the Cowboys late in the third quarter. Late in the third quarter against one of the best offenses in the NFL. There's definitely something to be said for putting more on Mac Jones' plate at this point. Let's go WFT Packers, the football team. The Packers win 24-10. What a weird game, right? I mean, another one of those. There's a big difference in talent level with each team. The Packers are clearly the better team. They're up for the majority of the game. The football team had so many opportunities, stopped on fourth downs. Taylor Heineke's running into the end zone and does the dive thing when he didn't need to, and he's down at the one, and they still didn't score.
Hate that rule. Hate it.
Explain it to the people.
They changed the rule in recent seasons where before, if you're a quarterback running forwards and you slid feet first, they would stop your progress from the point you started the slide. But if you dived head first, you were like a live runner and you got whatever the distance was until you were down by contact or broke the plane of the end zone or whatever. They changed the rule so that if you dive forwards and you go down to the ground, you are deemed done whenever you hit the ground. Like you don't need to be touched down by contact in order to stop your forward progress. So Heineke is scrambling for a touchdown. For some inexplicable reason, decides to go to ground in the first place.
Stupid play by him.
Just keep running, you score. What doesn't, he just sort of decides to slide to dive. His knee touches down before the goal line. Before anybody touches him, he crossed the goal line before anybody touches him. But the rule now is the second his knee hits the ground, he's down. And he's deemed as giving himself up, even though he's obviously trying to score and not giving himself up on the play. I get why they've done it, to stop essentially the plays where the quarterback dives forward, he's on the ground, and a defender drills him in the head anyway, because you're, in theory, trying to protect the quarterback. But it's just dumb. It literally stopped the touchdown here. Heineke scored a touchdown, but they don't give it to him because you changed the rule where his knee hits the ground, therefore he's down, even though nobody touched him.
But it's Heineke's fault. He knows the rule. Don't do that.
I mean, it's sort of
just
his fault.
Run into the end zone.
It's also just a dumbass rule.
That's fine.
Stop it.
That's fine. You also know the rule, Heineke. And then he gets stuffed on the QB sneak on the next play. So the football team
So that was a weird play as well because he they bashed the ball out, right? He tries to sneak. Somebody immediately hits it, forces a fumble short of the goal line. He then recovers the fumble and sticks his arm out and crosses the plane. But they're like, no. The second you recovered the ball, your forward progress was stopped. It's not a touchdown.
You can't advance a fourth down fumble, but you can if it's your own.
He could advance it, but they said that his forward progress had been stopped. Therefore, it was end of play. So they kind of got hosed out of a touchdown twice in about 6 seconds.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. I mean, then the football, they were down at least 2 scores in the fourth quarter. I think they spent the entire fourth quarter driving. It was just an odd game where the football team did, again, when you're this big underdog against not as big as some of the other teams, you need a lot of those things to go right, but they kept failing on fourth down over and over and over again. Packers got rid of good play by Rasul Douglas at corner, strip sack from Rashawn Gary, who had some pressure in there.
That was a really important sequence, by the way, the touchdown that should have been, the second touchdown that should have been. Like, Washington was still in this game at that point. Taylor Heineke, I would suggest, has been taking some pointers from Ryan Fitzpatrick in terms of, hey, look, I get you're trying to play the game, the right way and do all, but look, just start heaving it at Terry McLaurin. Look, I have been the master at the YOLO ball. Find the best player on your offense and just start flinging it in his general direction, and good things will happen. Trust me. Not all the time, but most of the time. So it was like in this game, Heineke had just pivoted to YOLO at McLaurin whenever you're in doubt. And there were a ton of plays where it was like, it's literally just a jump ball. It's like
40-yard touchdown, go get it, McLaurin.
Right. Whether or not he's open, we don't care. We're just finding McLaurin. We're putting the ball in the air in his vicinity and hoping that good things will happen. So McLaurin ends up with 11 targets. The next highest was Ricky Seals-Jones with 7. Nobody else had more than J.D. McKissick at 6. But that was the offense for a while, was just fling it at McLaurin. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing to do. I think if you are a player as limited as Heineke, why the hell not? And honestly, if Heineke wasn't like calibrated to a half Cam Newton level, it might have worked a lot more. Like everything, he just seemed to be half a yard high on almost every pass.
He was very high on a lot of things. Here's what the other thing I noticed, and this actually coincides. We have an email that's coming in live on the show from Rockstar Death.
Rockstar Death?
Yes.
Okay.
Penalties are a bad grade play, but how do you grade when the penalty is obviously a bad call? What if it's very clearly a bad call to people who know the game, but still a bit more debatable? Basically, can we blame the refs on the call rather than the player? There are plays. So when I'm watching Heineke, in baseball reference here, when a pitcher, and you'll know this here soon, when a pitcher throws below the hitting speed, right? When just slower than what you're used to seeing as a hitter, it just throws off your timing. So if everybody's throwing 95, you go and throw an 83, it takes a little time to adjust if you're below the hitting speed. When I feel like Heineke throws the ball so slow sometimes, it screws up the wide receiver, the cornerback interaction. They just get to the catch point early. And there's a pass interference penalty in this game. I think it was Rasul Douglas. Just a normal dig route. He gets there. He actually does a great job not really touching the receiver. Might have his hand on the pocket, doesn't turn him or whatever, jumps in front, knocks it down. And I feel like the refs called it just because it felt early because the ball didn't get there in time. You're used to the ball getting to the receiver in a certain time, but Heineke throws below the hitting speed, so to speak. It's actually inducing penalties that aren't even there. And so that coincided nicely with the live email that we had.
I don't know why you have this thing that Taylor
his velocity is poor.
Has this garbage arm. He really does.
His velocity is
there
poor.
There are quarterbacks in the NFL that have a terrible arm and do not get the ball where it needs to go and anywhere near the
his velocity is not
speed
good.
That it needs to. Heineke is not one of those
there
quarterbacks.
There are so many passes where he brings the defender into play when they don't need to. He threw an out cut to McLaurin along the sideline where he put it in a great spot. It just should not have been that close. Passing lanes are closing far far more than they should.
Heineke's
with
problem
Heineke throwing
is
the ball.
not velocity. Heineke's problem is that everything he throws is
I'm not saying it's his problem.
is half a yard higher than it needs to be, and that's why people are making plays on it.
No,
because the receiver has to stop, jump in the air to try and get the pass.
No, that one you're thinking of, there's one specific that happened because the receiver he came back more than he should have and made it look worse.
The one you're talking about to Douglas is because the ball is high and back, and Douglas can like basically jump over the receiver.
You're watching that?
Yeah, right now.
Let me see it.
No, this is not an interactive like video.
If I
format.
stand up, they might see I'm wearing sweatpants, so I'm going to
That
stay
would be a
behind
real
the table.
shame.
We're going to protect it. I'll check it later. That's a slow pass.
It's not the best velocity in the world, but the issue is that it's high and back, and the receiver has to leave the ground and stop running. If the ball was where it was supposed to be, it would be a touchdown, regardless of velocity.
The dig route, it's over the middle of the field.
There's one in the end zone.
I'm not talking about the end zone one.
Well, that's the only one that was broken up. I've looked through these pass breakups, and those are the plays.
Well, because he had a penalty on the play. You got called for a penalty, so it probably didn't.
It's a nullified
may not
play.
have counted as a pass breakup.
Thing. You just have some hate with Taylor Heineke's
I think I gave
arm.
him the PD on the play, though.
Okay, there is one nullified one. I'll
Thank
look
you.
at that one.
You should check that out. Let me know.
Tell you that's wrong.
Anyway, pretty nice game for Aaron Rodgers. I mentioned this might be the game he grades at 90. He was close. Just again, the football team was just really. They were just really close on everything. Just really close. They got it. They got the Packers into a whole bunch of third downs, even fourth downs. Rodgers, scrambles out, makes a big play on fourth down to find Devontae Adams for the first touchdown. They took advantage after the strip sack, early second half. Nice throw to Bob Tunyon in the end zone. So Rodgers continues to get back on track here. And, good win for the Packers. I do think they're going to get challenged a little bit more. What do you make? Are you still looking at the play?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you what you make of the Packers.
I don't care as much about that play.
But if we go back and look, Packers beat the Bengals, who, best team in the AFC, so that's a good signature win by the Packers. But their other wins, after getting destroyed by the Saints, the Packers have beaten the Lions, the 49ers, 30-28, the Steelers, the Bears, 24-10, and then the football team, 24-10. To me, there might just not be enough style points here for the Packers. And it's not really style points. You use how well these guys play the game to determine how good of a team they are, not just wins and losses. Yeah, the Packers have won 6 straight, but I think this is where they start to get tested here.
What a revolutionary system you have over there. You use how good the team is to determine how good the team is.
Yeah. How about that? I didn't even know you were listening.
Yeah.
I thought it was just me and our audience.
I don't know. I don't think we know yet how good the Packers are. It feels a little bit like the Packers from a couple of years ago, where they were a 13-3 team, and we were sort of saying
soft 13-3, right?
Yeah, like it's not as good as a 13-3 team. And when you run up against a team in the NFC Championship game, you'll find that out. And they did. Now, I'm not saying that's what this team is, but I'm saying we don't know that it isn't yet. And right now, it feels a little bit like that, based off how some of the key players are performing and how the overall level of the team is performing. Yes, they're winning. Yes, they're winning relatively comfortably from a lot of these games. But next they get to face the Arizona Cardinals. Next they get to face the Kansas City Chiefs, who are still the Chiefs, even if they're struggling. Seattle, Minnesota, the Rams. Like, this schedule will tell us.
Ravens, another Vikings game, a Browns game.
We're going to find out more for the rest of the season. I'm not saying they won't do exactly the same and look like the same team, but we will find out. It'll be a much better barometer based off how they do against this next run of teams.
If the Packers don't play better football, they're losing 4 or 5 of those games. 4 of those games, maybe. Seahawks, maybe if Russ is back. I don't know if he's back by week 10.
I will make no predictions about that, but I will say that that's what will tell us about the Packers, not the first 6 games, 7 games.
So that's my takeaway. I need better flash from the Packers. Better flash from the Packers. Atlanta 38, Miami Dolphins 28. I tweeted out that we were doing this next, right?
Did you say 38?
30-28.
Okay.
30-28 Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta wins. They tried to falcon it away, but they didn't. They brought it back in. Matt Ryan with a fumble while they were running out the clock. Dolphins come back, take the lead. Tua and Matt Ryan going head-to-head, back and forth. I thought Tua played an okay game overall. Thought he played well. A lot of his stuff comes on the old RPO there, Sam. The old run-pass option with a little glance. They call it the glance route, the slant route right behind the linebackers. I think on one hand, the Dolphins are doing a good job. working around Tua, but I feel like they're working around Tua. And that's part of maybe the issues there. He played well overall, though.
Matt Ryan, the number 1 graded quarterback in the NFL over the last 3 weeks.
He's on a stretch
4 weeks.
against 3 of the worst defenses
4
in
weeks.
the NFL.
4 weeks, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Matt Ryan's number 1.
Yeah. You love doing that. He played the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Jaguars?
Yeah, I mean, that'll help.
Did they play the Jags? No.
Who did they play?
Giants.
Washington, New York Jets,
Washington.
Miami, Giants are the 4. No,
Yeah, so 3 or 4 teams that have
3 games because he had the London bye.
some not so good defenses there. But Matt Ryan, after really starting slow this season, continues to generally throw the ball accurately and move the chains. And Kyle Pitts is really special, man.
Yes, and they're finally starting to well, not finally. They are tapping into that more than they did over the first few weeks of the season, where it didn't look like they really knew how to use Kyle Pitts. Now they're understanding that Kyle Pitts isn't just a freaky, talented tight end. Kyle Pitts is an unstoppable receiving weapon regardless of where you line him up in the offense. So now Kyle Pitts is out there lining up as a true number 1 X wide receiver, running against elite cornerbacks like Xavier Howard and just mossing them at the catch point. Like, he's beating up safeties as well. He's doing the same thing to guys like Eric Rowe, who was the sort of tight end eraser type of role throughout his career. Kyle Pitts is just unstoppable. He is a freak, and the Falcons are using it. And I'm here for it.
It is amazing to me. I know he's a tight end in name, and they're using him as a receiver more than a tight end in the whole thing. It's still amazing to me just how much he looks like a receiver, right? Like,
because he is.
Yeah,
he's just a big receiver,
a huge receiver, long, the whole thing.
I genuinely think that if he had just been a wide receiver in college, we would be talking about this guy like Megatron. Like, he is capable of that sort of performance. We would be saying I said this at the time, he was the best receiver in this draft, right? If you remove position designation for it, or if you just told me he had never played inline in his life, this was just a wide receiver in college, we would be saying this was the number 1 receiver in this draft, ahead of Jamar Chase. And I think Jamar Chase was a phenomenal receiver prospect. I think Devontae Smith was a phenomenal receiver prospect. Kyle Pitts would be the guy that I would have drafted ahead of all those players, and we're starting to see him be used like that. They're just saying, I don't care what position he is. We're just using him as receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he catches a go ball with one hand, another go ball that put the on the game-winning drive, go ball against Xavier Howard.
Yeah.
Just stacks him, gets on top, and again, just looks like a big, smooth, oversized receiver. So, yeah, position designation aside, doesn't really matter. Kyle Pitts, playmaker. And look, I think Russell Gage had the big 49-yarder where he got behind the defense. Calvin Ridley continues to just really struggle to produce, as far as, he caught only 4 of his 10 targets. It was all underneath stuff for 26 yards. I think that makes the Falcons even scarier. And they didn't, Cordero Patterson had 14 carries for 60 yards. So Gage is a good, solid receiver, by the way. He's become a pretty good receiver. Ridley, we know, has like top 15, top 20 potential, that he's played at that level before. Last year, he played at that level. He's still sitting there. We see what they're doing with Pitts. I'm telling you, the Falcons continue to get better and better and better. Now, the defense is also a little bit better than it was, early in the season and maybe last year, but they're also beat up, and they just don't really have the manpower to get that much better this year. I do love the way the Falcons are trending, though. Granted, they haven't played the best teams in the last few weeks, so maybe I'm overrating that as well. So if I'm going to do that with Matt Ryan, I mean, it's not the best teams that they're playing, but I think they're starting to figure some things out, figure out where they're I don't love the way that the roster is in general, but I like where they're trending. So impressive win, we'll say, by the Falcons.
Yeah, and look, they're definitely being helped out by the fact that the teams they've played are not tremendously good. But I think for them, it's actually important that they had this time against bad defenses to figure out how to use those players. Because earlier in the season, I think one of their biggest problems was just not understanding the playmakers that they had. You had Kyle Pitts, new to the NFL. You drafted him as a tight end, quote unquote. You didn't really understand what he was supposed to do within this offense. And you were kind of just deploying him as a standard move tight end, right? A guy who's going to play more in the slot than he does in line, but it's no different to any other player that's at that position. You have Cordero Patterson, who you sort of treat as this gimmick running back who can move around a little bit. All of a sudden, you sort of realize that actually Kyle Pitts isn't a tight end. He's just a freak athlete who we can play anywhere in the formation, and he will win everywhere. Like, we can treat him as Julio Jones, who can play in line, essentially. You've also discovered that Cordero Patterson is your best running back, and you're going to give him a ton of carries. You're going to give him more responsibility that he had earlier in the season. Now you're getting Calvin Ridley back, and you're integrating him into the system. I think figuring that out against bad defenses is important so that when you face better defenses, you at least know what you're supposed to be doing. Whereas if you had run up against a whole run of good defenses, you might never have figured out how to deploy any of these guys.
Yeah, I'm excited where the potential is there. So Atlanta, again, moving in the right direction. I like what you're saying about how they figured it out over these last few weeks. I still expect Ridley to break out at some point. From a Dolphins perspective, they put up 28 points. Tua, he had an end zone interception, which was a little sketchy. The tight end route versus Tua's decision and the whole thing. Tight end could have run a different route. I think it made it look a lot worse, Sam. But he had his other interception trying to throw the ball under pressure. Another one where like the receiver kind of moves, but it's just a bad decision by Tua, throwing while getting hit. And I think that's part of the problem. If you're talking about the training wheels on Mac Jones, the fact that 9,000 of Tua's completions come off of RPOs and screens. It's not exactly 9,000. The dude completed 32 for 40 and the whole thing. But it is a safety first passing attack.
The problem is they're in a different spot to the Patriots because this offense almost has to look like that because of everything else around Tua. In addition to Tua, I would say. But like, they're not really in a position to do what the Patriots can of like, take the training wheels off, go balance on this bike by yourself. You do that to this Dolphins offense with the offensive line that they have, the whole thing is going to collapse and the kid is going to be on his bike in a ditch somewhere. Like, Tua, they have to run this RPO system where the offensive line is protected, where Tua gets rid of the ball really quickly, where you rely on all this kind of stuff because that's the only way that it survives. So now you're in this weird spot of, okay, it's kind of working, but like, what is the ceiling of any of this? Like, where is Tua's ceiling right now? Because right now he's playing reasonable football up until the cataclysmic idiot mistake that he makes every 30 attempts or so, right? Like the one in this game.
He's got 80-plus grades over the last 2 weeks. They're good, but they're also like his positives, the ones that, they're still good throws, they're still good plays. They're open, right? They're open coming off of
and
this.
All of that, he's averaging 7.1 yards per attempt this season. Like he's in this right now. He's on that Alex Smith spectrum, except the difference being he puts the ball in harm's way way too often. Yeah. And they're not like it's not Mahomesian type plays where to try and make a big play you're taking some risks with the ball. It's like things are going south and you just randomly like run into a blocker and throw the ball at a linebacker. Like you cannot ever do that if you're going to be that style of quarterback. So if you're the Dolphins or if you're anybody looking at Tua as a prospective option, if Miami makes a move for Deshaun Watson, you are looking at this player who has so far looked to be a relatively limited quarterback who has a tendency to do terribly silly things with the football. And I don't know how attractive that is to anybody.
Yeah.
Like all the things you were bitching about with Taylor Heineke, that's what I see when I see Tua play. And I thought his arm was actually okay coming out, but everything he does in the NFL
Tua might be thrown below the hitting speed too. I mean, I didn't like his velocity coming out.
Everything he does in the NFL just looks so difficult. And also, he is the least athletic quarterback I can remember seeing in a long time. He gets into the open field, and you think a dude with his speed and quicks and all that kind of thing makes a guy miss and picks up 10 yards. Nope. Like, throws a move on him and just gets immediately hogtied by the ankles and put down. Like, that. So you look at Tua and you think, oh, his athleticism's a plus. I don't think it is. So you just got a guy who's got a marginal arm who hasn't really shown the ability to push the ball down the field much.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
And who occasionally makes a cataclysmic mistake. What is that?
Jimmy Garoppolo. My initial comp.
Right.
Which is, spread it around. A lot of times it'll look like he's working quick, which he is, working quick. There's two decisions a game or sacks that are taken that are like, oh boy, what is that? 2 to 4 of those. And it's Garoppolo-like, which again, you can win with, but it takes that 2019 49ers supporting cast, which includes a Shanahan, which includes a Kittle, and a great group of a good offensive line, a good running game, and a good defense. It takes a lot of other things.
And he's also got an injury history that might be Jimmy G-like as well.
Very Garoppolo-like.
So if you're Miami, you're in a tough spot. The things that Dan Campbell said about Jared Goff last week, this is a bad situation to be trying to evaluate a quarterback in. On the other hand, right? It feels similar for Miami. Like, this is a rough spot. And because of that, it's really hard to get a good gauge on where Tua is. On the other hand, he needs to stop throwing the ball to linebackers.
All that said, I think the biggest disappointment in Miami, as far as just based off expectations, is what the secondary is doing, what the back seven's doing, just what the pass defense is doing in general. Xavier Howard had a really good game. Byron Jones gave up a little bit, 6 catches into his coverage. Javon Holland got whooped, I think, on that Gage pass. This is the part of the defense that was supposed to be the strength, and it's been rough. Howard played well yesterday, which is fine. He got beat for the 1 deep ball by Kyle Pitts. He was like glue. He was like glue to Cordero Patterson. Glue on when Patterson ran wide receiver routes, but that's just one guy.
8 targets, 1 catch. That was
the Pitts one. But Howard is fine. He's given up yards this year. Just this entire secondary that was heavily invested in. We always coverage over pass rush and this whole thing. The pass rush isn't great either, but that was supposed to be what the strength of the team is, and they are just not stopping opposing passing attacks well at all. So that's, to me, the biggest disappointment for the Dolphins this year. All right, where else are we going to go here? I tweeted out. Let me see. What did I say on the tweet? Panthers Giants.
Okay.
It was 5-3 Giants for a while.
Yeah.
In this one, they pull away though to win 25-3. A
couple of 5s on the score sheet at some point yesterday.
Yeah, Arizona had a 5 over the Texans. So I can't wait to talk about that game too. 25-3, Giants beating the Panthers. Giants move to 2-5. Panthers fall to 3-4. That's their 4th straight loss. Sam Darnold gets benched after averaging 4.4 yards per attempt, getting sacked 3 other times. Gets benched for P.J. Walker, who was worse, going 3 for 14. And as I said at the top of the show, this feels like the Panthers might just be dialing up the Texans right now in the Deshaun Watson deal. I mean, are they just fed up with the Darnold experience through 7 games?
Yeah, it has been reported that all of a sudden Carolina is involved in the Deshaun Watson thing. The report was something like, I think it was from Joe Person, maybe, who said, all along it's been said that the Panthers were not involved in the Deshaun Watson discussions unless something changed, and something changed in this game. Essentially, Darnold was so wretched in this game that they've decided, screw it, there's no answer on this roster, what can we do?
Yeah.
And the what can we do at this point is Deshaun Watson. And I don't know if this is like a short or long-term move. They've been making moves as if they think they're a playoff team. The Stephon Gilmore thing, right? They think or thought that they're a playoff team this year. And is this all of a sudden Darnold stinks so much they're like, well, that can't happen.
You called them out on that during Gilmore week. They were 3-1 when they made that move, right? I think.
I don't remember when it happened.
I mean, they had a winning record.
Yeah.
They started 3-0. They were either 3-1 or 3-2, I think, at the time.
Might have been 3-2, I think.
And even then, it was like, are they really that good? Are the Panthers really that good? The defense has been better and all that stuff. Darnold was playing well through 3 weeks.
But is this a move along the same lines of we still think we're a playoff team, but all of a sudden the playoffs are getting further away in the distance, so we need to fix the quarterback.
With Watson?
Who just stunk.
No, see,
Watson is eligible right now.
No, that's fine. But they're not making a Deshaun Watson move to salvage 2021. It's because
I mean, it's not like it's mutually exclusive, right? Short term is also long term, but
sure. But my feeling on the Panthers regime here is we spend all offseason saying you got uncover every rock looking for a quarterback and draft a million of them.
They didn't.
They kind of did, though. I think, they spent last year evaluating Teddy Bridgewater. And they said, okay, we're done. You're on the trading block. We're sending you out. Then they evaluated Sam Darnold. Now, the mistake here with Sam Darnold is picking up his fifth-year option because next year they're on the hook for over $18 million, almost $19 million for Sam Darnold, when they didn't necessarily need to pick up that option. And they were hedging that they were going to make him look so good, they were going to get him on the cheap, really. We're going to get him on the cheap for $18 million because he's going to hit the open market and make that.
But you were then going to need to pay him anyway. Like, it's not like...
Yeah, but
what did
maybe
that do for
if
you?
he was so good, he'd be making $24 million. I don't know.
All that does for you is save you the difference between the fifth-year option and the franchise tag.
I think that it was a mistake. I think to pick up the fifth-year option on Darnold, but at the same time, it was like, well, if we're going to evaluate him and just let him walk, like we don't, they hedged a lot, or they just got aggressive a lot on Darnold. It's a mistake.
Yeah.
It is an absolute mistake.
I mean, trading for him was a mistake.
But
Picking
I would
up
say
his fifth-year option was another mistake.
I would say they looked at Teddy Bridgewater, they looked at Sam Darnold. The two guys that they passed on in the draft were Justin Fields and Mac Jones. So you could say they didn't they didn't uncover every rock. They had two options at two of the other first-round quarterbacks. Sure, that's fine, that's fair. But I just think they were in on Matthew Stafford, right? They were in on Carson Wentz. They're looking everywhere for quarterbacks. So to me, it's just we have to solve this quarterback situation long term, and they want to be in on Watson.
But the idea that something changed this weekend, like what changed? Darnold still stinks. Darnold stank last week.
Enough to get benched against the Giants defense that hasn't been great this year.
Right, but like it feels a very questionable process to me to be like, oh, this week Darnold was so bad that we've decided Deshaun Watson is an option. Whereas last week, Darnold was just regular
Watson
bad.
was an option. This just feels
That's
like...
not what the report is. The report is they were not interested in Deshaun Watson until...
Oh, really?
Until this changed. This weekend, Darnold changed the process.
Because you had 3 games of pretty good Darnold, and you had 3 games of not so good, and this was the tiebreaker. And he was bad enough to get benched against the Giants.
Yeah, it was bad. But this is Sam Darnold. This is inevitable.
That's what changed. So the Panthers,
all right.
Panthers are going to throw all their first round picks at it. How about them Giants though? I don't know. Hanging tough. Hanging tough here with their second win.
Daniel Jones with a one-handed snag.
That was incredible catch. Incredible catch by Daniel Jones. Is he going to grade above 80?
Yeah, he is. He's back up 80. 80 this week. So he's 77.2 overall in the season, moving back up. I swear to God, that one game against the Rams is going to cost me lunch.
It's going to cost you lunch. Let's see. We'll see. Jones has more turnover-worthy plays in him. He's only got 7 on the year.
Yeah, and 3 of them came in that Rams game.
He's got more turnover-worthy plays in him this year.
Jones is legitimately a pretty good quarterback at this point, and will get no credit for it because the situation around him is still pretty rough.
It is. The offensive line continues to be beat up and depleted, but man, I don't know. Giants are hanging around. I don't have much else to say about this game. Giants are hanging around at 2-5. They're tied at 2-5 with the Eagles and the football team. The NFC East is the Cowboys and a whole bunch of, not as fight. Are the Giants back to feisty defensively?
When they face Sam Darnold and PJ Walker. Yeah. For this, the story coming out of this game, though, is that Carolina's season was a complete myth for the first 3 weeks. They're not very good at all. They have no quarterback.
Their offensive
team is not great.
Let's make more Darnold excuses. He still has never played behind a good offensive line.
Yeah.
Azeez Ojulari, Leonard Williams, dominant up front.
But on the other side, Daniel Jones is not playing behind a good offensive line.
No, he's not.
He's looking fine.
He's not.
Yes. That was our concern heading into the year, right? Okay, this is the best group of receivers Sam Darnold has ever played with. On the other hand, this offensive line looks really bad. It's 4 bad players and Taylor Moton.
Yeah.
Now, that has been the case, but that didn't stop Darnold playing well for the first 3 weeks. I don't think the offensive line is the thing that is causing Sam Darnold to look like the same Sam Darnold he's been for his entire life.
No, I know. I get it. Matt Peart came in. He was filling in for Andrew Thomas. Had a really nice game at left tackle. Everyone else, not so much. So the Giants' offensive line was good at one spot at left tackle yesterday from a pass protection standpoint. Matt Skura, Billy Price, Will Hernandez, and Nate Solder, all grading under 60 from a pass blocking standpoint.
The Giants might be in that spot that we thought the Ravens were in. Like at the first, you remember they've got 2 left tackles and no right tackle.
Parrott can only play left.
As well. Right. If Parrott can only play left, and Thomas can only play left, and Solder maybe best on the left, they might have 3 left tackles and no right tackle.
It's like 10,000 left tackles when all you need is a right. It's the NFL these days.
It does appear to be that way, right? All those teams were teams with multiple left tackles
Mitchell?
And no right tackle.
Mitchell, the right tackle market is depleted. Get Mitchell back off the out of the kitchen.
He's barbecuing ribs and stuff. Got no time for this crap.
I know, he's living the life. Just
there's got to be a team out there somewhere with like multiple right tackles and no left tackle.
You would think someone.
Just to even it up, right? And then this is just a trade waiting to happen.
Thanks to everybody who's sitting in the YouTube chat. Love being live with you guys. Don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button. Help it go viral. I'm trying to get you to go viral. I told everybody that you compared Kyle Pitts to Megatron.
Okay.
So that'll get people here.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What other games have we not discussed yet? Let's see. We got that one, this one. Only a few more. Let's go to the 4 o'clocks here. The other 4 o'clocks. Vegas, 33. Eagles, 22. Derek Carr didn't miss. He missed 3 times. 31 of 34 passing against this soft Eagles coverage. But it wasn't just that, dude. Derek Carr continues to make incredible throws down the field. 43-yard back shoulder to Zay Jones. Derek Carr's throwing the ball pretty well, man.
He is, yeah.
Dome quarterback now. They get the nice dome in Vegas. Helps the pass game.
Does look like a nice dome.
Yeah.
I haven't been there, but I've seen it from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when the offensive line is not a problem, that offense is really good. Now, I think that's a bigger concern. Like, that's true for a lot of teams, but I think it's a bigger concern for the Raiders than it is for a lot of teams. The offensive line held up pretty well in this game, but it hasn't held up well in every game, and those are the issues, I think. So in this game, their offensive line was actually moving people. Like, they've had one of the worst run blocking units in the NFL as well. They were just bulldozing the Philadelphia Eagles at times. All of a sudden, they had a run game, which is going to be massively helpful to the passing game. They had 120 rushing yards with no plays. They had 119 with the plays that actually counted. I think when you have that platform, that Raider, like Derek Carr is a really good quarterback now, as long as he's not running for his life.
And they spread the ball around a ton, right? I mean, Foster, almost said Fabian. Foster Moreau, 6 catches for 60 yards, right? I mean, he's the guy leading the way.
How about a touchdown snag?
It was sick. It was just good overall. It was a great game. Carr had the early interception, and after that, the Raiders really weren't stopped after the early red zone interception. And that's the other thing. They were in the red zone, right? It's not, you don't take out that play. I'm just saying they moved the ball pretty easily against the Eagles here. And then the pass rush, the defense, the whole thing, getting after it against the Eagles. A good all-around win for the Raiders. And now I think when you're looking at their season, they lost to the Bears a few weeks back. That was in the middle of the drama and stuff like that. They're 2 weeks removed from Gruden being fired here. But you have to wonder how much that Bears game at home maybe was affecting their focus and the whole thing. That was one of their losses against a Bears team that the more we learn about them, they're really not all that good.
Yeah, but they do have a defensive line that's capable of causing you real problems, particularly if you have a bad offensive line. So the Bears are not good, but they do match up pretty well in terms of being able to cause this Raiders offense some problems. And I think there are going to be teams like that. Like, the Raiders are a pretty good team and they're a pretty good offense, but when you run up against a defensive line that can just destroy the weak links you have on your offensive line, you're going to get exposed and you're going to have a tough day at the office. I think the Raiders are going to have a few games like that this season. The other interesting thing from this game was the Raiders pass rush. So first decent test that Max Crosby has had this season. First good right tackle he's played all year long. He played pretty well.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah, like a notable step down from like all pro level, but he had 4 total pressures. He was in on a hit, a few hurries. He had a couple of wins as well on plays that didn't get to be pressure. He had like the dive over the top at the goal line to stop a QB sneak. He was like pretty good. That, I would say, generally speaking, when you have elite pass rush runs up against elite pass blocking wins. It shuts down the elite pass rush. So for him to have 4 pressures and a pretty good game overall against a guy as good as Lane Johnson, I would say is a really good indication that, okay, he might not be the best pass rusher in the NFL like he looked for the first 6 weeks of the season, but he is for real. Like, he is going to play at a very high level all season long. And then the other side, Yannick Ngakoue was a monster, had 8 total pressures, was a beast.
He had his best game since week 1 against the Ravens. And yeah, like, my concern with Ngakoue in free agency this offseason was he's not that versatile. He was a little bit lower in our rankings because he's not one of those guys you move around or anything, but when you just throw him at right end and say, hey, use your speed, get up the field, play the pass, he's never graded well against the run, never will change probably. He's been effective, man. He's been a good complement to the great Max Crosby on the other side. So
beat the great Jordan Mailata a bunch of times.
I know, he did.
That's an interesting
Still learning
one.
Football.
Yeah. That's an interesting one because as much as Ngakoue is kind of a one-trick pony, it can be a very effective one trick. And if you haven't quite figured out how to stop it, you could have a really rough day at the office. That sort of feels what that was for Mailata. I think he has the athleticism and the skills to match a guy like Ngakoue, but hadn't yet figured out how it works. You know what I mean? I would imagine if they played again in like 6 weeks' time, Mailata would play much better against Ngakoue than he did in this game, but he got pretty well wrecked.
So yeah, I'm impressed. Look, it's the Eagles, whatever, Raiders. They're a 5-2 team now. Took care of business, right? They're tied for the best record in the AFC, and Carr was really good. Carr's going to be at the end of this weekend. Probably, I think it's a top 3 passing grade in the NFL right now, and I do love the way all those weapons are coming together. Zay Jones had that one catch for 43 yards. That was an absolute laser by Carr. But he was the league leader in big time throws coming into this. This was a different game where this is what the Eagles make you do. They make you kind of throw the ball underneath and spread it around, and the Raiders did it well. And when you go 31 for 34 for 323 and a couple scores, pretty solid game by Carr. Wasn't sacked, just really good clean game from him other than that red zone interception.
Are you any closer to having any idea what the hell Jalen Hurts is?
No, because he doesn't. I feel like so much of his production is in garbage time, or when the game's out of hand. But even then, there are impressive things in there, right? He does make impressive throws where the game's not on the line, but is that his fault? Or is it just like within the flow of the, like when because it's not like defenses play prevent, quote unquote prevent. They don't just sit there and give you 15-yard completions over and over again at the end of the game. It's not the truth. Like, they still play real defense for the most part. It's just generally a little bit softer. And I feel like Hurts has benefited from that a little bit. And he's had some games where things are just so inconsistent when win probability is tighter, earlier in the game. So no, I don't know. I mean, again, he added some run game value, made some nice throws, misses others, takes some sacks. He seems to be a quarterback who, so overall, his numbers and his production and his grade and all these kinds of things, they're going to end up looking reasonably good, but he has like the opposite of what Justin Herbert has, where, Herbert is amazing at all the high leverage situations that are typically not sustainable. Hurts seems to be terrible at all the high leverage situations. Like, his grade on 3rd and 4th down is like 45, whereas it's in the 70s overall. So, like, despite like the situations where he's been dragged down by the 3rd and 4th grades, it's still good enough to be in the 70s. Like, he's actually really quite good at the other stuff. And I think that's why you get a lot of people being like, you get a lot of people being like, Hurts is terrible. Yeah.
Because it's the high leverage plays that he screws up, and you're like, like when he misses, it's on a 3rd down where you needed to have it and you didn't, and now you got to punt the ball.
The legit opposite of what Eagles fans saw from 2017 Wentz.
Yeah.
The last time their non-Foles quarterback played at an elite level.
Right. So I think because of those plays, like, those are plays that skew perception. If you're really good on those plays, people think you're amazing. If you're really bad on those plays, people think you suck. And the reality for both those types of players is you're probably somewhere in the middle. So Hurts' grade on first and second down is actually 81, which is a pretty good place to be. But then on third and fourth down, it drops to 45. So I think Hurts is probably better than the perception right now, but I'm still not convinced he's good enough for you to roll with going forward. The other weird dynamic with Hurts is they don't seem to want or have a running game. Like, he is the running game. He has double the carries of anybody else on the team. Now, okay, Miles Sanders got hurt, twisted his ankle in the game, so you can say, well, that might skew you away from giving running backs the ball. But they've been doing this for weeks now. Like, at some point, it feels like you might actually want to have some more design carries in there instead of just asking Hurts to be your offense.
So it's a great point about that, because the value of having a running quarterback is to also open up your run game and make it more efficient, right? So even if Hurts is going to have 7 or 8 design carries per game, there is value in that if your other running backs are getting carries, and just the having to account for Hurts is opening things up for those guys. Plus, the offensive line's been all over the place as far as injuries go, but historically the Eagles, when Lane Johnson's out there and Jason Kelce and Mailata, that's a good run blocking group. So that is potentially a strength of your team. And look, I know we always talk about, to protect a young quarterback, you're supposed to pass more and do it on early downs and stuff. But you do want to get away. You don't want to put everything on Jalen Hurts converting third downs, right? You do want to make that life a little bit easier. So I do think they're taking some of his potential advantage away, because I thought this offense would look more like the Taysom offense, right? As we had talked about the Taysom offense last year, it's a little ugly sometimes passing, but there's run game value in the whole thing, and we just haven't seen that to this point.
Yeah, and they're not even like, they are calling designed runs for Jalen Hurts, but they're not the runs you would expect for a team with a mobile, I don't want to say option quarterback, because that's not what he is, but a quarterback that allows you to run read option, run pass option, all these kinds of things. Like, athletic quarterbacks that can also throw, that open up a chapter of the playbook that teams that don't have those guys can't access. So if you have a guy like that, like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or any of these types of quarterbacks, you would expect to see a ton of RPOs. You would expect to see a ton of read option mechanics, and you're not. Like, none of their run plays for their carries for Jalen Hurts were option mechanics, which means 9 of them were not. Yeah. And not that many were scrambles. Like, they are calling designed run plays that are not causing defenses the kind of stress that you can cause with those things. So I don't quite understand what they're trying to do on offense, is my overall point here.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And look, I always made the point about Jalen Hurts. He's not a dynamic runner. He's just he's Tyrod. Tyrod's a more dynamic runner, I think, than Jalen Hurts. He's just a good straight line. If you leave a straight line to run and he runs fast enough to pick up 8 or 9 when another guy maybe picks up 5. I mean, to me, that's him as a runner. He's a solid runner, but you can use him as, in the run game. So I think the Eagles have some work to do, maybe, to take a little bit off of Jalen's plate. It feels similar to what we said about Lamar, when it's just not enough production coming from other people around him.
The interesting thing to me, though, is Darius Butler is on our PFF live show on Sundays, writes a column for PFF as well, has a good podcast. You should check him out. He's on Twitter. Darius was saying, like, he's kind of disappointed by Jalen Hurts so far this season, because he came into the year with like high expectations, thinking, based off last season, Jalen Hurts could really take a step forward and propel this offense somewhere. And he's kind of bummed about how he's been performing so far. And I was saying, it's funny, like, the way what you think of a movie going into it completely changes what you think. Right. If you think a movie's going to be good and it's like, meh, you come away thinking it sucked. Whereas if you have zero expectations for the thing and you're like, that was actually pretty good. Like, that's kind of how I feel with Jalen Hurts. I came into the season with zero expectations that Hurts would show anything in terms of a potential starting career going forward. And I'm therefore like pleasantly surprised by how he's played so far. It's not perfect, but I see a way bigger percentage that he can be a viable starting quarterback going forward now than I did 7 weeks ago. And
First contract guy. I'm okay with him on the first contract.
But what's really interesting about the Eagles now is that they've amassed all this draft capital and might not have a quarterback to spend it on. Like, this college group of quarterbacks does not look like a home run. And if the Eagles have all these top 10 picks, I don't know that you can throw them on the quarterback. So you're in this world now where 7 weeks into the season, Jalen Hurts has not looked incredible, has not looked terrible, and you have this slightly weird offense where I'm not quite sure what it's trying to do. I think you have 10 weeks now to try and craft an offense around Jalen Hurts that makes sense, with the possible option of being able to like actually roll with him as a starter next year with an improved supporting cast around him, and then figure out quarterback in the future if it doesn't pan out.
I think that might be the play. Add as much talent as possible. Roll with Jalen on the rookie contract. Maybe he continues to. Maybe he exceeds my expectations, your expectations, which again came in a little bit lower. Maybe he continues to improve, and then when you do get to extension time, you play the field. Maybe you grab Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years, or Deshaun Watson or Russ, or you keep all of those high end options open. You keep looking in the draft, but I don't know. Maybe you roll with Hurts here on the rookie contract. Either way, the Eagles are 2-5. Impressive win by the Raiders at 5-2. Nice job by Derek Carr. Got to give that Derek Carr credit, man. He's having a really nice season. All right, a couple more games to discuss. This will be quick. Couple beatdowns here. Arizona Cardinals 31-5 over the Houston Texans. And can we roll these in together? The Bucs. Now we'll talk Bucs separately. 31-5. Arizona wins against the Houston Texans. It was 5-2, 5-3 at one point, whatever it was. I don't know. It was close at one point. Then Arizona pulled away, including a Zach Ertz 47-yard touchdown. So the middle of the field, there was an interception thrown to Zach Ertz. There was also the long touchdown. But again, I'm impressed. Kyler Murray's intermediate passing, middle of the field passing, just a huge turn of events for this Arizona offense this year.
This game felt like such a grind for Arizona. Like, it felt the whole way through that this was like a close, hard-fought game that was just such a brutal, labored effort by Arizona, and then ultimately they end up like completely out of sight, and it wasn't even close. Kyler Murray took some hits in this game that he really shouldn't have taken. Obviously, he was kind of at fault for the safety where he was doing some crazy things in the end zone, didn't get out.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of plays where he was trying to do that kind of run around behind the line of scrimmage thing and make magic happen, and the Texans did a really good job of just penning him in and eventually nailing him. And he took a couple of shots that you thought at one point might put him out of the game. Didn't. But I don't know. It's very difficult to know what to do with a game where you think the Texans actually made a really good fist of like stopping Arizona, and yet it ends up being a massive blowout. Other than to say that it's another game where Arizona absolutely answered what the questions that were asked of them. Like,
they did.
All the way through the season, that's been the story for Arizona. People keep questioning them, and they keep coming up with answers and looking as good as ever. This was a different type of game, but it was questions thrown their way in terms of it's physical, it's not being easy. You're in this sort of tough, awkward situation, and ultimately you just keep on hammering away and end up pulling away comfortably.
I think it's another game, too, that just shows the different ways Arizona can win offensively. Nice job by their defense and the whole thing. Davis Mills. Yeah, the Texans' offense is overmatched. Texans' defense is really overmatched, too. But when you can run the ball, Chase Edmonds and James Conner both had over 60 yards on the ground. DeAndre Hopkins got open for what should have been another touchdown. Kyler overthrew him, but you got Nuke who can create those big plays. Zach Ertz randomly comes in, creates the big play. AJ Green tied with Ertz for the most yards. They're all getting open and they're all creating plays. They didn't even need Rondale in this game, right? They didn't even need to use him all that much. So there's all these different ways to win. And on top of that, they haven't had to use Kyler in the run game as much. He took those 4 sacks, which, as you mentioned, he was spinning into them and just taking some negative plays that he would probably want back. Honestly, I think that was a big part of what held Arizona down. It seems like the snapping has been an issue at center with no Rodney Hudson. It's either coming early, Kyler's dropping it. It's a bad snap over his head. They're losing drives because of bad snaps over these last couple weeks. That's one of the things that's holding down this offense. So yeah, they stumbled into 31 points in a game that was an uncomfortable probably for Cardinals fans who wanted, just domination from start to finish. But that's a good thing too, right? The fact that you could do that on not your best week, you could still score 31. It shows what this offense is capable of.
Definitely. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a good sign that a completely different style of challenge, Arizona absolutely answered. They were in this tough, hard-fought battle early in the game and then just kept on going. And whereas Houston didn't really have anything on top of that, the Cardinals kept on showing that this is a very, very difficult offense to try and slow down. Kyler Murray was incredible again. He was really good under pressure, but he was barely under pressure. The Texans weren't able to get much heat on him at all. And he was really good when he wasn't pressured. So Kyler Murray is absolutely, I think, in the MVP conversation through 7 weeks. He looks fantastic. And a big part of that is the Cardinals have now surrounded him with enough receiving weapons that how do you stop this?
Kyler Murray now is he the next linear growth quarterback along the Josh Allen lines? We have literally seen Kyler Murray get better every year. He's one of the highest graded passers on that. I keep mentioning the 10 to 19 yard range, the intermediate range, just because it was such a weakness for him through 2 years. It was like short game, deep game, everything in between was not great. Now it's good. We're seeing specific improvement in a specific area that they needed to, and it is one of the most difficult offenses to defend in Arizona right now. So I'm with you. MVP conversation, absolutely, for Kyler Murray. Bucs 38, Bears 3. Feels a little closer than it actually was, to be honest.
Yeah.
Bucs probably could have scored 60 with all those short fields. Justin Fields sacked 4 times, 3 strip sacks, and 3 interceptions in there. So the Bucs absolutely dominated this game. The Bucs offense started their drives in Chicago territory like 5 times, whatever it was. Tom Brady throws touchdown number 600. A couple more after that. Mike Evans gives the ball away. Not smart.
Dude, that fan, gave it away to some fan, and then everybody realized that actually that was the 600th touchdown ball. Somebody needs to go get that back.
Yeah.
So what was it? It was reported what the guy got. He got like $1,000 or something in gift shop vouchers, right? So it's not even like it cost him anything.
A couple jerseys, I think.
Yeah, a couple of and a replacement match ball. No. You see, we're gonna take the one that's worth something and give you this crappy one that's worth nothing instead. Oh yeah, sure. Some guy was on Twitter saying that ball is worth $500,000. That guy gave away a fortune.
Well, who gets the ball? Is it going to the Hall of Fame? Does Tom Brady want it?
Brady's gonna keep it.
I mean, either way,
it's for the trophy cabinet.
I think it's worth $500,000, right?
That's what apparently on the memorabilia marketplace. That's the starting. That's what it's worth to begin with.
Romo and Nance, I think they were saying it took the entire commercial break to negotiate. So the guy worked hard to get his $1,000 in a couple of jerseys.
Not hard enough.
No, not hard enough.
I'm just saying, when the guy comes over and is like, that ball, can we have it back? And he hands the ball back. I would be handing my cell phone number to him to start the negotiations after the game. No. This is mine now. You make me offers.
Talk to my lawyer.
Right. Talk to my representative. I'm going to need an offer that starts pretty high and a replacement ball and $1,000 worth of gift shop
I would have found security said,
not going to cover it.
This has been a fun game. It's 14-0. I'm leaving.
Right.
I'm going home, protecting my $500,000.
In this jacket
he's holding a nice suburban house in his hands.
Pretty much.
And he gave it away for a jersey. And hope they take care of him a little bit more than that. Yes, anyway.
I mean, look, it's better than nothing, right? I'm just saying it's not $500,000, which you might have made on the football.
From a Bucs, we'll talk Bucs really quick. They moved to 6-1. Brady missed a bunch of throws. Wasn't his cleanest game. A couple nice ones down the field, whatever. They could have scored a bunch of touchdowns. They left some plays on the table. They are running the ball much better.
This was
weeks adds more weaponry here to the offense.
This was the worst game of Brady's season, and he still had 4 touchdowns, 5 big time throws, and won the game, by 35 points.
Yeah, he missed some open ones. They had no Gronk. They had no Antonio Brown. Didn't seem to matter, right?
They also had no cornerbacks. They're still without most of their starters. Obviously, Richard Sherman gets injured a week and a half or whatever after they signed him. D. Delaney has been starting. D. Delaney gets injured. They were down to like nobody, and the Chicago Bears couldn't complete a pass. Yeah. This was the game. This was pretty close to the Cleveland game in terms of this offense is just not, it can't work. It's dead. It's toast. And it wasn't even all the blitz. Like, heading into the game, this was one of those games where Justin Fields was the second worst graded quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. The only one worse was Davis Mills. And the Bucs are the most blitz-happy team in the NFL. This sort of had death by blitz written all over it. And while Justin Fields certainly didn't play well and didn't play well against the blitz, they didn't actually blitz him that much. It was like a third of his dropbacks were blitzes. What do we got? 18 dropbacks out of however many he had in total. 43. So, okay, a bit more than a third, a little less than 40%. Have you got the percentages? You're good at that kind of stuff.
What was it again?
18 out of 43.
Oh, that's just such an uneven one.
Yeah. That's why I gave you a ballpark range instead of the number.
41%.
Okay,
maybe.
41. So it's a high number, but not. It could have been worse against the most blitz-happy team in the NFL.
How close was I?
But in that
18 divided by 40.
In those snaps,
41.9%.
Well done.
How about that?
Justin Fields just looked lost. He looked overwhelmed. He looked dead in the water.
There are unblocked pressures, and again, when there's an unblocked pressure, you don't. I didn't go back and evaluate the tape. You can generally deduce who it's on, right? If it's a back that didn't read it out, or if a back free releases when he's not supposed to, or sometimes the quarterback is hot off of an unblocked rusher. He got popped, though. There was another one where it was like, hey, it's the offensive line's fault, right? The pressure's there in about 2 seconds. But Tony Romo did a great job breaking it down. Another one, I got to go back and watch it closer again, but it's quick game. Usually a lot of QB reads are like, when you see this, you start on this side of the field. If you see that, you start on the other side of the field. It looked like Fields was getting to the right wide open receiver, but he started on the wrong side of the field. So if he started on the right side of the field, he's got a tight end, quick little 5-yard stick route, get rid of it, ball's out. But he started on the other side. He worked back to the tight end where he should have started anyway, and he gets strip sacked. So it's one of those where it's like, it's bad on the offensive line because the pressure was there really quick, but Fields reading the wrong side of the field. Don't completely quote me on this. I'll go back and confirm it. But if he's reading the right side of the field, the ball's out. So that's where the analytics community always likes to say sacks are a QB stat, which the analytics community also likes to just make blanket statements that are broad that make it sound like that's true 100% of the time where it's not. What it actually means, what the analytics community means, is that sacks are more on the quarterback over time than they are on the offensive line. It doesn't mean that the offensive line isn't to blame for some or whatever. But this has been a concern for Fields, taking hits, sacks, 4 yesterday, 3 strip sacks. He does look overwhelmed. And this is a Bucs defense. It's one of the best teams in the NFC, Super Bowl champion and all that stuff. They've also been carved up much of the season and depleted, as you said. It's a great defensive front, but the secondary's been carved up a lot other than the last 2 weeks, and beat up by injury. And the Bears offense had 0 chance in this one.
It did. Fields' process is just not good at the moment. Like, there's the play where he gets strip sacked by, was it JPP, clubs it out from behind. And if you're just sort of looking at the point where the fumble occurs, you're like, there's nothing Fields could do. Like, his right tackle gets whooped. He's in the throwing motion. He had no shot. But if you sort of look at how that play broke down, he's reading one side of the field first, the side the blitz is coming from, then doesn't like what he sees there, turns to completely the other side of the field. Like, normally your progression kind of takes you left, middle, right, slowly across the field. Not like we're reading one side over here, now we're flipping like 180 degrees to the other side of the field. Does that, then sees his right tackle is in trouble, tries to go all the way back again, and gets strip sacked. It's like, what, how did you imagine, like, just talk me through what you thought was going to happen here. You get this a lot where a coach and a player sort of sit down, what did you see here? What was going through I want to understand what your thought process was. I would love to hear him talk out this play and be like, explain to me what you thought was going to happen here once you turned away from the side you saw the immediate pressure coming to, back to the side you'd already bailed on and tried to throw the ball. Like, come on. This is not
The internal clock's
workable
just
here.
not great. He showed like there are other times where it's boom, 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 gets rid of it quick. There's just too many plays where the internal clock's just not great. Joe Flacco had a lot of that throughout his career. I thought Joe Flacco was oblivious in the pocket, but he also just worked slowly when it came to progressions and all that stuff, right?
The concern here, though, is this whole season has always been about what is best for Justin Fields and his development as a future starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, which everybody assumes he is. This was a game that definitely didn't help.
No.
At all. And late in the game, they're getting pounded. Justin Fields is getting buried. And I was like, why is he still in the game? And there are people like, oh, he needs the reps. He does not need those reps.
I don't think so either.
Those reps were not helping anybody. And it feels like whatever about the offense being workable and like this idea that the first game, like they were sabotaging Justin Fields, right? So that he could look bad. So they like, I told you, Andy Dalton was the guy to start all.
A lot of theories to protect Fields so far.
Right. That's kind of crazy. But I will say that this was a game where he was not helped by his offense. Yeah. And there's a degree to which you owe the guy a duty of care to protect him better than you're protecting him right now. Now, it also turns out that for the second week in a row, he thought he had a free play and didn't. Apparently this time, he didn't get a guy to jump with a hard count, but apparently, this doesn't even make sense now that I think about it, but apparently the guy was in his ear saying they had 12 men on the field, so they snapped it early, and they didn't, or at least the flag didn't come out for it. So he threw.
I mean, if that's true, that's just bad overall.
Yes.
It's bad.
It is. But that means for the second week in a row, essentially, he's had one ridiculous turnover type play where he thought he had a free play. Now, there's also a degree to which, like the point in a free play is to still complete the pass, not to just throw it to the opposition because you're going to get a penalty. But like if you're coming out of this game and you're Chicago and you're like, okay, Tampa Bay is a tough defense, but we're going to face a few more of those throughout the season, we've got to figure something better than this out. Like this is not only is it bad for the team generally, we're just getting our ass beat, but this cannot be helping Justin Fields long term. This is damaging, and that's the worst thing that you could do right now is damage the quarterback that is supposed to be the starter long term.
I don't even know if this is a bad run of defenses or not, but they have the 49ers coming up. Yeah. They have the Steelers coming up in week 9. They can always get after you with the blitz, even though they're not doing that as much this year. You got the Ravens in week 11. Maybe they're not as – they're going to blitz a lot. They're going to come after you, but I don't know if they're as good as we may have thought. Then you get the Lions on Thanksgiving.
No, but like all these teams are like worst case scenario, right? Because you're not even thinking what is that defense like against an offense that's viable. You're like, if they can get after us or if they can blitz, how bad is it going to get? So the Steelers will wreck that offensive line. The Ravens will definitely send the house and wreck that offensive line. Like you are looking at defenses where if the offense plays like it did in this game, Justin Fields is screwed.
Well, it's not looking good right now. And look, I think the entire Bears offense is – I think Andy Dalton would run their offense a little bit better at the moment. You take that for what it's worth. Bears fans or anybody, Andy Dalton would run this offense a little bit better.
Right.
They would still be one of the worst offenses in the league.
Which isn't to say that he should be starting unless you're of the opinion that –
That's not what I'm saying, right.
But unless you're of the opinion that the snaps that Justin Fields plays in these situations are damaging him, which some of them I think certainly are. The problem is, though, you've made the move. So now you're in this spot that I said all the way along.
You did.
That you're now in a spot where you might need to take him out of games because it's going to go that bad. They're in that situation now, but you can't do that because you've already dithered around so much with the Dalton Fields thing in the first place.
I want to admit sometimes we completely separate things like, well, he's accurate, but he's not good at this, this, and this. Fields' accuracy has been poor right now, but I think accuracy is tied to confidence. It's tied to footwork. It's tied to
running.
It's just a different world, right? Fields is playing a completely different game of football than he did last year, where he sat in a pocket for 3.5 seconds at Ohio State and had 2 receivers who were probably going in the first round, waited for them to get open, and then threw it to them. Now, that's not to say he can't work fast. That's what the offense called him to do. He sees the throw. He throws it accurately. He is not doing that at all right now, in part because the offensive line, it's the NFL. Things have to move faster. Everything's different, right? He's playing a completely different position, basically. this year, and it's going to take some time. So the question is, are these reps bad reps, or are they good reps because everything's got to move slower for you at some point?
I mean,
and you hope you see it enough that it gets better.
I think you've made your bed in terms of you can't bench him again for a game. Like, you can't say this is a tough opposition, I'm going to start Andy Dalton this week. You have to say we've made the call. Justin Fields, suit up. You're going out there.
Because nobody takes that ridiculous idea that you have.
But I do think that you should be prepared to save Justin Fields from himself in some of these games. Like, to me, there's no way Justin Fields should have been playing late in that game. He was just getting beat down. There was nothing to be gained. Like, I do not think that the reps he got late in that game were in any way beneficial. And if you have to, like, activate Nick Foles so you're not putting in Andy Dalton to create the controversy, do that. Do whatever it takes and be prepared to, like, throw Nick Foles out there to get himself killed in the fourth quarter. But
how is Nick Foles some sort of, like, way worse than Andy Dalton?
I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying if you put in Andy Dalton, the problem with this whole situation is you've now created this drama that if you put Andy Dalton back out there ever, it's like, look what he's doing with it. Just at least if you have Foles there, you can say, we just wanted to protect Justin. You know, there's no QB controversy. He's still QB1. We just threw out Nick Foles because we don't care if he gets battered late in the game. He's our QB3. You know, that's how it is. Whatever you need to do, just figure something out so that you can pull Justin Fields from the end of the game and not have him die.
I honestly don't know that Matt Nagy has been bad I don't think he's been bad as a Bears head coach. I'm just wondering at this point if they just want to change everything at the end of the year.
I mean, yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So Bucs win 38-3. We got one more game, Sunday Night Football.
You still have a game?
Yeah. It was the Colts and Niners. This could be quick, too, because the river was raining.
The
atmospheric
river.
The atmospheric river torched this game. Atmospheric river won.
It's fascinating to me that
how many fumbles were in this game.
You as a nation seem to have created all these new weather descriptions. Like in Ireland, and let's face it, we know a thing or two about rain.
Yeah, you do.
All you need to know is it lashing or not? Is it it's raining, okay, but how bad, right?
Lashing rain?
Lashing rain.
Oh.
I don't need to know if there's an atmospheric river that's like funneling water over. Like it's raining, okay? How bad is it raining?
The meteorologists need something to do.
In this game, the answer was it was raining very badly.
Cats and dogs.
It was lashing rain.
Lashing rain.
Lashing rain, cats and dogs, pissing rain, whatever you want to term it, that's what it was doing in this game.
There were only 7 fumbles. It felt like 100. 7 official fumbles in this football game. Bunch of dropped interceptions. Carson Wentz he's got all the interception records, the lack of interception records.
I love that they had to take one away from him in this game for that record to still exist. It's like Carson Wentz was had the longest run of any quarterback in the NFL between throwing interceptions. And then he threw an interception, and like, oh, okay, that record's gone.
I mentioned this to you before.
And then later in the game, it's like, by the way, we've taken the interception away from it. It's now a fumble. So the record stands again. It's brilliant.
And NBC had no problem putting the graphic. Oh, he hasn't thrown an interception in 170. He just hit the Niners in the hands like 8 times in this game.
Midway through the game, I tweeted that Carson Wentz had the best grade of his career, has a highest PFF grade since that 2017 season. The Frank Reich reclamation project's been going pretty well. I think genuinely the very next play, he hit a defender in the hands with the ball and then had like 5 turnover-worthy plays in about 4.5 minutes of game time. You're like, this is insane.
Now, the weather was the factor there, right?
Sure, yes.
So all I'm joking about, I'm not blaming Wentz. I mean, he didn't grade well because he did fumble and whatever.
That weather got bad enough where I genuinely think you could have constructed an argument to say you were better off not having the ball than having the ball. Like,
punt it.
Yes. If
that long snap and catch by my punter, though,
that's
scary.
The thing. If you could have guaranteed me a safe long snap and punter handle, I would have said punt the ball away at first down and play defense for like a good portion of that game.
Yeah, it was bad. The conditions absolutely affected things. Both quarterbacks, passes all over the place, drops like crazy. It was just tough to do anything. So, credit the Colts for just coming out on top. I think both teams tried to run the ball. They created some big plays on the ground. Jonathan Taylor had another nice game. It's not always easy to see, but now Michael Pittman I mean, it's easy to see this. 4 catches for 105, including a 57-yarder early in the game, and then the touchdown late. Michael Pittman becoming a legitimate playmaker for the Colts. And all offseason, I was kind of railing against the Colts. Not enough playmakers. I tried to throw the hedge in there unless Michael Pittman takes a big step forward or whoever. Pittman's starting to do that, which is nice. I think they might need more, but this is as far as like the 3-4 Colts, who are so close to 4-3 in that Ravens overtime loss, boding well for the future the way Michael Pittman has emerged.
Yeah, and as much as Wentz had that stretch where he tried to turn the ball over like a million times in a couple of minutes, he kind of gathered himself and got back on track late in the game, had a really nice play that Nyheim Hines dropped down the sideline. It wouldn't have been a touchdown. There was a safety coming over the top, or at least he would have had to beat a safety for it to be a touchdown. But that should have been a big play in a key situation. Had the late pass to Michael Pittman, which was something of a jump ball, but it was a well-placed pass as well. He played pretty well late in that game. And then the Colts defense, like as much as we keep looking at this group and being like, why are they good? Like, there isn't that much talent on this defense. They kept showing up in
they're not good this year.
No, but they have games like this where they do show up and force a ton of fumbles. And
when there's a bomb cyclone, river rain, tornado thing
they still have to go out there and like punch the ball out. It's not like it was just falling out of people's hands.
You just needed to tap the ball and that thing was coming out for fumbles.
The friend/enemy of the show.
Darius Leonard was
going out there bashing the ball out at every possible opportunity. Bobby Okereke, apparently. Even though on the intros, which are recorded in the preseason, he says Okereke.
Yeah, so Okereke is now going by Okereke. I was confused for a while. I don't like when I mispronounce names.
Well, I certainly don't like it when he himself pronounces it differently.
And so he confused me.
Yes.
But then the boss got it right. Chris said, and Al, they said he likes to go by Okereke now. Nigerian roots, was it, that they were saying?
I think
something about his... He just wanted to change the pronunciation.
It's like grandparents. So it was how it was supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah.
And then his parents or something came over and just went by Okereke on the basis that it was easier.
So he's gone and changed it, and we'll change with him.
Yeah. But he played well. Leonard played well. Kenny Moore ends up with a pretty crappy grade and had a couple of plays where he was unfortunately not great. But he also had a ton of plays where he was like in and around the ball making impactful hits. Like I felt sorry for him because the first drive he made like a couple of really big hits, like sort of tone-setting physicality, the kind of stuff that Antoine Winfield used to do early in a game, where you would try and run like a sweep to his side and he would just bury the guy, and all of a sudden the defense is kind of jacked up. Your cornerback is delivering that kind of hit. Kenny Moore made like 2 of those plays and then got smushed by a tight end on a big run, and of course that's the play that they like highlight. Kenny Moore here gets a little bit by the tight end. You're like, come on, the dude just like he's like 2-1, and the one you draw up is the one where he got beat.
Poor Kenny. We've talked about a lot of teams being just depleted in certain areas. That's San Francisco in the secondary, or at cornerback specifically. They bring Dre Kirkpatrick's the one who got beaten on that jump ball to Michael Pittman. You can't even call it a jump ball because Dre did not jump.
Well, you can still call it a jump ball.
It was a jump ball in which the defender didn't jump, and so the result was somewhat predictable. Dre lost.
Yes.
So Michael Pittman goes up. So that was he had 2 targets on 2 coverage snaps.
That's not great.
One was a 28-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
But that's just, Emmanuel Mosley got hurt. Josh Norman out there. They have had to stitch together the outside cornerback room as much as possible this year. It's been a little rough for the 49ers. The Jimmy Garoppolo narrative is not strong right now. He's having a difficult season, and this didn't help at all. I mean, the last interception just straight slipped right out of his hand. It was horrible.
Yeah.
They played in this rain last year too. I think Washington, was it? Or this year or 2 years ago, the Niners have played in some crazy rain games, mostly on the road.
It's tough because you almost have to be like, this was so bad in terms of rain that you have to throw out anything from this game. Proper throw-it-out game, as we love.
It's a good throw-it-out game, but even if you do throw this out, you still might be throwing out Jimmy G's season in general.
That's the problem, is that it's a throwaway game, but it fits perfectly with everything else he's done this year.
I forget the exact quote. I'm sorry if I misquote you, Kyle Shanahan, but when asked if Jimmy Garoppolo was going to start next week, it was something to the effect of, I suppose so. So
endorsement.
We're not sure if Trey Lance's knee will be ready to start next week, but I believe Kyle is ready to see the number 3 overall pick, Trey Lance, play some football when he's ready.
I mean, they're reaching the point where what's the downside, you know? Like, it's one thing if you do have playoff aspirations and you think you're going to be a good team and blah, blah, but at some point you reach a stage in the season where you're like, that's probably not happening this year, so let's throw the rookie out there.
I don't know if Trey Lance is ready for next week. I would love to see it, though, because they're playing the Bears, who we just mentioned a little while ago. It would be Trey Lance versus Justin Fields, potentially.
And unlike the Justin Fields situation, I don't think that there is a danger of a damaging set of reps for Trey Lance. Like,
we might get Andy Dalton versus Jimmy G, though.
Wow.
No, we won't. But
I don't think Trey Lance hasn't looked tremendously ready. On the other hand, I don't think there's the same downside to putting him out there that there is with Fields.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good point, right? I think Fields' lack of ready is pressure, getting rid of things quickly, and the whole deal. Plus an offensive line that's killing him, or pass blocking that's killing him in general. Whereas with Lance, it's like, man, he needs a little touch.
Yeah, he'll be protected better by the
Don't
offense.
throw to linebackers as much. That type of thing.
But he'll be protected by that offense a lot better than Fields is being protected.
He will be. Anyway, the Colts moved to 3-4, perhaps back in the mix here. Players again in the AFC where everybody that could have been good is 3-4, and they're all in the mix. Sound good?
Sure.
That's a great show. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in live on YouTube. We're here on Monday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern. Hit that thumbs up so we can just go viral here. Tell all your friends. It's all about the PFF NFL podcast. And tell your friends that they can get 25% off too. Tell them. Text them. Tweet them. PFF NFL podcast. Our special promo code is NFL Pod. NFL POD. You get 25% off any PFF subscription. There's no better time than right now, except other times of the year are great too. But right now is the best time to go in. Mm-hmm. You always mock my sales pitches.
I have not said a word.
Special thanks to sponsors of the show, too, DraftKings and Manscaped. And, of course, PFF, NFL Pod, 25% off. Use that promo code. All right, guys, we'll be back on Wednesday breaking down maybe Monday Night Football and the other big stories around the NFL. See you Wednesday.